Chapter 355. Had he fallen asleep? Ever since he had entered Crimson Rock Mountain and risked his life, he had never slept in the past 4 years. Actually, at his current level, sleeping was just a habit, a pleasure, and not a necessity. When he had fallen from the path of reflection, he had definitely fallen into a deep sleep. Although it had only been a short while, he had felt very comfortable after falling to the ground and waking up. I'm only halfway through the first section of the path of reflection. Let's try again. Ying immediately took a step forward, leaving behind an afterimage as he arrived at the beginning of the path of reflection. He once again stepped onto the stone steps, walking upward step by step. Although the feeling of exhaustion engulfed his soul, it was getting stronger and stronger. Ying, on the other hand, sought a transcendent state of mind. Just like when he was suffering from the pain of the voodoo poison, he was able to minimize the effects of the pain and maintain an empty mind. But the feeling of exhaustion on the path of reflection was endless. The more he walked, the stronger it would become, far surpassing the effects of the voodoo poison. Wake up. Stay awake. It's all an illusion. Ying worked hard to make his soul even more ethereal, abandoning all influences. Even if the wind and sand filled the sky, he would still stand tall. In midair, there were currently 4 figures standing side by side, watching as Dong Bo fell asleep and fell down the path of reflection time and time again. They were Shi Wei, Crimson Rock, a youth in a thick robe, and a youth in a scarlet cloak. The thick-robed youth watched from afar and revealed a smile. This kid is quite impressive. He has walked the path of reflection time and time again. This is the 6th time, right? He actually walked 20 more steps than the first time. He actually improved in such a short period of time. Perhaps he really does have a chance of becoming an inner disciple and becoming our little junior brother. Old 7, don't you think so? Amen. The scarlet-cloaked youth nodded. He has just cultivated the myriad tribulations body, and his body is nourishing his soul. In less than 10 years, his soul will be at least twice as strong as it is now. His heart will be tempered a bit more, and passing the first section shouldn't be a problem. Do you think it's possible for him to take us away in the future? The thick-robed youth asked. How difficult would it be to bring us away? The scarlet-cloaked youth shook his head. The laws of the material world are incomparably tyrannical. Even the mighty powers of the deity realm are unable to forcibly descend upon it. Only the lords of the material world are able to freely enter and exit it. But when the lords of the material world return to the material world from the deity realm, they can only bring some inanimate objects or ordinary transcendence with them. Deity-level experts and even stronger experts could not be brought into the material world unless he had a heavenly abode treasure. Paradise treasures can carry living beings and can isolate the detection of the material world. Back then, we were forcefully thrown into the material world from within Crimson Rock Mountain. However, obtaining an Eden treasure was simply too difficult. Back then, Master only had Crimson Rock Mountain as his only Eden treasure. Second senior brother, if we want to get out, we can't rush it. We have to be patient. I understand. The thick-robed youth nodded lightly. The thick-robed youth grinned and looked at Crimson Rock. Senior Crimson Rock, can't you lower the requirements for becoming my master? It has to be a personal disciple, a world deity, Crimson Rock said. Without an exceptional talent who has comprehended a grade 1 true meaning, it's impossible for him to avenge Master. If he can't become a world deity, he won't be able to refine Crimson Rock Mountain either. A grade 1 true, meaning transcendent, or he has to grasp a grade 1 deity heart within 10,000 years. The thick-robed youth shook his head. Master has lived for so long, yet he's only accepted 2 people who meet these requirements. Even if Ying has become a world deity, if he isn't a personal disciple, how would he be able to find an Eden treasure? Among our group of fellow disciples, only eldest brother Ming had a heavenly abode treasure. Senior brother Ming had a very special status amongst the disciples of Crimson Rock Mountain. He was the leader of the 3 great personal disciples. He was the idol of worship for all the disciples. In the deity world, senior brother Huiming's brilliance was even more dazzling than his master, sacred master Crimson Dust. Even though he wasn't a powerful existence, he was close to it. I wonder if senior brother Huiming has become a powerful existence, the scarlet-cloaked youth said. According to Ancestor, he hasn't, Shiwei replied. AI, in our Crimson Rock Mountain lineage, only senior brother Huiming has a chance of becoming a powerful existence. What a pity. The scarlet-cloaked youth was somewhat unresigned. The thick-robed youth beside him shook his head. Senior brother Huiming was wantonly spreading his faith. It said that over 100 million mortal worlds were the source of his faith. His faith allowed him to become powerful, but it also restricted him greatly. Wanting to become a powerful existence is simply too difficult. It's only been 1,000,000 years since we fell into the material world. How could eldest senior brother Huiming break through so quickly? Let's not talk about it. Let's look at that little fellow Donghua. The scarlet-cloaked youth looked into the distance. He's walked the path of reflection 10 times today. It seems he's about to give up. He's not giving up. Look, he's going to the soaring cloud pagoda. The thick-robed youth said. The two of them were the only two-world deities in Crimson Rock Mountain other than Shiwei. This heart needs to be polished frequently. Otherwise, the slightest negligence will cause one to fall behind. Donghua Shui quite liked the path of reflection. If he didn't have the path of reflection, then he could only cultivate his spear techniques, merging his heart with his spear and tempering his will over and over again. Alas, the effects of the path of reflection couldn't compare to the path of reflection. The path of reflection directly targeted the heart of one's soul. Walking it 10 times a day would be extremely effective. Donghua Shui soon arrived in front of the towering 9-story pagoda. This was the soaring cloud pagoda. One had to pass through 6 floors in order to become an inner disciple. The soaring cloud pagoda's doors were wide open. Donghua Shui stepped inside. Inside the pagoda, there was a spacious circular space. A white-bearded old man sat cross-legged with 2 swords strapped to his back. When Donghua Shui stepped into the spacious circular space, the white-bearded old man opened his eyes and a smile appeared on his face. He looked at Donghua Shui with a gleam of excitement in his eyes. Someone's finally here. It's been a long time since I last fought, and I'm about to suffocate to death. Although this body on the first floor is weaker, and the power I use is also weaker, it won't be that easy for you to win. Let me see how powerful you are. Donghua Shui stretched out his right hand, and a black spear appeared in his hand. Donghua Shui battle intent was also boiling. How many years had it been? This was the first time he wasn't plagued by the hexing poison, and the time immemorial body filled his body with energy. This surging feeling made him thirst for battle. Moreover, the moment he entered the pagoda, he discovered that there were no seals on the space inside. Teleportation, spatial penetration, and so on could be used freely. He could use all sorts of laws of profound mysteries to his heart's content. You go first. Make your move. The white-bearded old man stood there, and he spoke in a carefree manner. All right. Donghua Shui didn't decline, and he instantly charged forward. Shua. His extreme piercing instantly pierced through space, and he charged towards the white-bearded old man. Freeze! The white-bearded old man was still as carefree as before. He merely spat out a single word, and the space around him froze. Donghua Shui, who was originally using his extreme piercing, was also forced out. Space deity heart? Donghua Shui expression changed slightly, but his movements didn't change. He directly stabbed out with his spear. Boom! The terrifying strength of the time immemorial body allowed a casual extreme piercing strike to possess a might that could cause one's heart to tremble. The white-bearded old man frowned. Clang! Clang! The 2 long swords on his back were instantly unsheathed, and he held one in each hand. With lightning speed, 2 dazzling sword lights clashed against Donghua Shui's spear. Donghua Shui only felt that the 2 swords were clashing against his spear from the side. In just an instant, the spear's body was guided to the side, and the long swords followed the spear's body and pierced towards him. Too fast. Even his instant movement and extreme piercing were too slow to dodge. Dongbua Shui Ying immediately transformed into his doppelganger, and he immediately teleported 100 meters away. Rip! The white-bearded old man's two swords flashed with sword lights. For a moment, streaks of sword lights intertwined with each other, crisscrossing within 100 meters of Dongbua Shui Ying. No matter how many doppelgangers Dongbua Shui Ying used, he couldn't escape from the crisscrossing sword lights. Moreover, the sword lights were fused with space, and they were unpredictable. They would appear here and there, and it was hard to predict where they would appear. Dongbua Shui Ying's only powerful secret technique, star meteor annihilation, was an offensive killing technique. It didn't have any powerful defensive techniques. He could only take it head-on. Pung pung pung. Dongbua Shui Ying's body was instantly attacked by the sword lights. Some of the sword lights even pierced through space, ignoring the godly armor he was wearing, and pierced into his body. However, those terrifying and sharp sword lights pierced into his body, causing his blood, bones, and organs to tremble slightly. Every particle in his body was incomparably tough, and they easily dissipated the impact. This terrifying sword light, which was close to the power of star meteor annihilation, was easily blocked by Dongbua Shui Ying's body. Dongbua Shui Ying himself was slightly stunned. This body of mine isn't a little too strong? Dongbua Shui Ying finally understood why the time immemorial body strength, speed, and other aspects were only supplementary. The most powerful aspect was its ability to protect his life. It was one thing for the sword lights to be unable to pierce through his skin, but it didn't even cause any damage to his internal organs. No matter how strong your body is, you won't be able to defeat me. You still won't be able to pass the first level. The white-bearded old man wielded his sword with both hands as he stood not far away. Dongbua Shui Ying looked at the white-bearded old man in front of him. He had to admit that his secret technique, star meteor annihilation, was considered strong. His other techniques were too simple. Even if he combined them, he was still completely suppressed by the white-bearded old man. The white-bearded old man had grasped at least 2 grade 2 deity hearts, and he had fused them extremely well. This is only the first level, and his realm is already higher than mine. Dongbua Shui Ying thought. Chapter 356. In the spacious space on the first floor of the soaring cloud pagoda, Dongbua Shui Ying realized that the old man in front of him had a higher cultivation than him. However, a battle isn't just about one's cultivation. Senior, be careful. Don't blame this junior for bullying you. Dongbua Shui Ying warned. Clearly, he had decided on a new direction after the first exchange. Bring it on. The white-bearded old man's lips curled into a smile. Boom! Dongbua Shui Ying charged over in an instant, and his speed instantly reached a terrifying 2,000 li per second. This was the speed he had after cultivating the time immemorial physique. At the same time, the spear in his hand stabbed out like lightning. Pu. Countless spear shadows enveloped a large area. The white-bearded old man had just used both his swords to counter the spear attack, but he was immediately attacked again. So fast. The white-bearded old man's expression changed. This spear art was too fast, and the might of every spear strike was comparable to a mid-stage high god. Even if it was a mid-stage high god, the white-bearded old man would still be able to counter it. However, he couldn't defend against the countless spear shadows that came at him at the same time. The speed was too fast, and the attacks were endless. In a split second, the white-bearded old man was forced to retreat, and the space around him distorted. Dongbua Shui Ying felt his vision blurring, and the distance between him and the white-bearded old man changed. You want to defeat me with pure strength and speed? The white-bearded old man's silhouette blurred, appearing on the left and right side of Dongbua Shui Ying. His sword light contained terrifying destructive power. Dongbua Shui Ying tried to block in a panic, but the sword still pierced through his body. Now, a cold light flashed in Dongbua Shui Ying's eyes. Boom! The black spear in his hand swept out, and as it swept out, the spear itself expanded. As a divine weapon, It was natural for it to be able to change its length. When the white-bearded old man attacked, the black spear swept out in an instant. The white-bearded old man didn't have time to escape, and he could only rely on the sword in his hand to block. Pung! The black spear smashed into the sword, bending it. The spear continued to smash into the white-bearded old man's body, and he was sent flying while coughing out blood. Dongboy Shui didn't show any mercy, and he continued to fight in close combat. The 100-meter-long spear in his hand whistled through the air, ignoring the white-bearded old man's attacks. His time immemorial physique could ignore them, and he could attack as he pleased. At times, he would use extreme piercing to increase his speed. From time to time, it would be the true meaning of Star, unleashing its full strength and sweeping through everything. Stop, stop. The white-bearded old man's expression. Stop, stop, stop. The white-bearded elder shouted. You win. You win. Time, the white-bearded old man said, High's heaven stage, said, dragon has. Junior barely, of Tion of King, said. Master, Chen said. This junior only relied on his body to barely win. Donghua Shuang said. Battles were all about using one's strengths to attack the opponent's weaknesses. Since his cultivation base was weaker, he had to make use of his advantage. The time immemorial physique was so powerful, and its defense was so heaven-defying. Naturally, he could disregard his defense and attack as he pleased. Furthermore, he had to unleash his full strength and speed to bully his opponent. A wooden staircase appeared beside him. Donghua Shui walked up the staircase and arrived at the second floor. This was also a circular space, and there was a white-bearded old man seated cross-legged here. The only difference was that there was a dark green pole placed on his knees. Little fellow, the body I used on the first floor was too weak. The strength I can use on the second floor has increased by quite a bit. The white-bearded old man laughed coldly. Come at me and make your move. This junior shall not decline. Donghua Shui did not hesitate. With a flash, he appeared in midair and slashed down with the spear in his hand. As the spear slashed down, it grew to a length of 100 meters and slashed towards the white-bearded old man. Humph! The white-bearded old man held a pole in his hand, and he casually swung it upwards with both hands. Pung! The spear slashed downwards while the pole slashed upwards. The two clashed together, and the resulting shockwave spread throughout the entire second floor of the soaring cloud pagoda. Donghua Shui could feel the rebounding force from the spear, and he could not help but stagger backwards in midair. His expression changed. What power! It's actually not any weaker than mine. No, I'm accumulating my energy and slashing downwards, while he's just casually attacking from the same spot. His strength should be above mine. This body of mine, the white-bearded old man said. It's comparable to the profound gold heavenly gauze body at the entry level. Although its survivability isn't as good as yours, it has an advantage in terms of strength. Most of the honorary disciples of my Crimson Rock Mountain would cultivate world deity ranked secret techniques. Donghua Shui nodded. He understood. His three true meanings were only at the stage 3 realm, and he had relied on secret skills to reach the entry level. Those who could become honorary disciples usually had grade 2 deity hearts. Thus, it was much easier to cultivate world deity ranked secret techniques at the entry level. With my current strength, any honorary disciple who cultivated for a few years would have the same strength as me. The white-bearded old man instantly made his move after finishing his sentence. A pole, like a flood dragon in the water, whizzed over with the power of a whirlpool. Donghua Shui hurriedly used his spear to defend. Wah! The rod brought with it a maelstrom force as it clashed with Shui Ying's spear. The spear was deflected to the side, and the rod directly stabbed into Shui Ying's chest. Pung! Although the time immemorial body easily blocked the impact, Donghua Shui was still involuntarily sent flying, and he struggled to stabilize himself. Brat, your cultivation is still too low. The pole swept across the surroundings, and no matter how many hundred meters the Mirage Avatar transformed, it couldn't escape and was directly sent flying. Your strength isn't enough either. The pole clashed with the spear, and the pole smashed onto Dongbua Shui Ying's head. Your spear technique only has one secret skill, and it only knows how to attack. It's too easy to break through. The pole merely spun and smashed onto Dongbua Shui Ying's wrist. Fortunately, the time immemorial body was powerful, and he was still able to hold onto the spear in his hand. Pung pung pung. Dongbua Shui Ying was suppressed in all aspects. He couldn't compete in strength or speed. He couldn't compete in techniques either. By relying on his illusory avatar, a single sweep of the pole could cover an area of 100 meters. Dongbua Shui Ying crashed into the edge of the circular space, and he fell to the ground. He shook his head a few times before regaining consciousness. Do you still want to fight? The white-bearded old man carried his pole as he looked at Dongbua Shui Ying. Not anymore, not anymore. Dongbua Shui Ying shook his head. Just now, his head had been smashed tens of times by the pole, and he was feeling a little dizzy. Even so, his skin wasn't broken at all, and he didn't even lose a single strand of hair. He could only sigh in admiration at the time immemorial body's heaven-defying defense. Cultivate well. You're only at the threshold of becoming an honorary disciple, and you've only cultivated one more world deity grade secret skill. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be able to win the first floor, the white-bearded old man said. Dongbua Shui Ying nodded. Walking out of the soaring cloud tower, Dongbua Shui Ying was actually quite excited. He could fight against a powerful opponent at any time, and he could constantly discover the flaws in his spear technique, allowing him to continuously improve it. The Crimson Dust Island could accelerate time, and he could view the creation of heaven and earth imprints. He could walk the path of reflection, and he could even fight against experts from the soaring cloud tower. It was definitely a holy land for cultivation. I must make full use of my time and not slack off. I must work hard to become an inner disciple before the war breaks out. At that time, my strength will be much higher than it is now. I believe that I will have the strength to fight against the sorcerer god and the great demon god head-on. Dongbua Shui Ying was filled with anticipation, while Dongbua Shui Ying was bitterly cultivating on the Crimson Dust Island in the Xia people's world, deep underground. A towering, blood-creeping flower was growing here. Its huge green vines, countless thin vines, and countless flowers permeated the surrounding land. These thin vines and flowers even wrapped around the corpses of deity-grade life forms. Boom! An incomparably terrifying fluctuation suddenly spread out from the blood-creeping flower. The blood-creeping flower had begun to transform. Above this underground area, boundless energy was gathering in the sky, and a huge ocean could be vaguely seen in midair. The ocean surged violently. The mortals in the surrounding cities could see the huge image of the ocean when they raised their heads, and they could even hear the sound of the ocean splashing. The fluctuation of the opening of the deity sea could not be concealed. In the entire Xia people's world, every transcendent could clearly sense it. Whether it was the Xia people, the Beast clan, or the transcendent natives, everyone knew that a deity had been born. Chapter 358. What is that? All the mortals in the cities looked up in shock. It was too shocking. A huge ocean had appeared in midair, its waves surging and majestic. Its might caused countless people's hearts to tremble. As for the size of the ocean, it was at least 10,000 miles wide. It was comparable to the size of a county. Such a huge ocean appearing in the sky was even more eye-catching than the sun. Half of the inhabitants of the main continent of the Xia people's world could clearly see it. The other half could not be seen because of the clouds, tall mountains, and other external obstacles. Why is there such a huge ocean in the sky? The mortals could not understand. Not just them, even the titled knights and titled sorcerers could not understand what this meant. So. In various parts of the Xia people's world, one silhouette after another soared into the sky and stopped in midair, looking at the vast ocean that was emitting boundless might. Opening up the deity ocean, All the transcendents were stunned when they saw this. Deity ocean? God's domain? What's going on? Is a deity being born? Who has become a deity? All of the transcendents started to panic and panic. In an ordinary village, Chao Qing, dressed in tattered clothes and disguised as a mortal, raised his head. His expression changed. Another deity has been born. Who? Because he was a native of the Xia people, he received the love and protection of the Xia people's world. That was why he dared to become a deity in Crimson Rock Mountain and secretly returned. In the previous history, as long as a deity was born, the Xia people and the Beast clan would immediately check to see if a deity had appeared on their side. Not appearing? Then it must be the other party. Although they were unwilling, they would immediately retreat to the Transcendence world. Even Palace Lord Chen's Qi clone had left the infernal realm and arrived in the mortal world. He stood in midair and watched from afar. Palace Lord Chun, a deity has been born. Is it our Xia people? Palace Lord Chun, is it our Xia people who has become a deity? Palace Lord Chun, is it our Xia people who has become a deity? He asked the Palace Lord Chun for a large amount of information. Everyone was very anxious and wanted to understand the situation. For ordinary transcendents, the birth of a deity was almost impossible to resist. However, they did not know that this era was different. In this era, Dongbo Shui Ying had the power to easily crush ordinary gods. However, his opponents were the armies of the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God. That was why he continued to cultivate in Crimson Rock Mountain. Who is it? Palace Lord Chun was also anxious. Palace Lord Chun, don't worry. A message came through. Palace Lord Chun was overjoyed. It was Jing Xiu who had sent the message. He immediately asked, "Do you know who it is? Could it be Snow Eagle?" No, Snow Eagle hasn't reached the third stage realm yet. Mountain Lord He and faction head Si Kong Yang had both condensed a true deity heart. Xiu Qi Bai had a grade 3 true meaning and had reached the peak of the third stage realm. All of them were relatively close to becoming a deity. Dongwu Shui Ying's talent was outstanding. He had a total of 3 grade 2 true meanings. However, his comprehension of the realms wasn't too high. According to Dongwu Shui Ying, he hadn't even reached the third stage realm. It's not Snow Eagle. It's a plant life form sent out by Snow Eagle, Jing Xiu transmitted. This plant life form has already become a deity and is still growing. It will be of great use in future battles. Good. Palace Lord Chun was overjoyed. Very quickly, Palace Lord Chun transmitted to the many transcendents of the Xia people, "Everyone, don't worry. The one who has become a deity is our Xia people. As for who it is, we will keep it a secret for now." All the transcendents of the Xia people felt their hearts relax. Following that, they became ecstatic. Becoming a deity? In this era, everyone knew that the situation was dire. The Xia people had already begun to secretly migrate. How joyous was it for a deity to be born? While the Xia people were overjoyed, the atmosphere within the transcendent world, the oceanic forest world, had become much more oppressive. Within the oceanic forest world, there was a fortress that was heavily guarded. Its entire body was hemispherical, and there were countless runes engraved on it. This was a fortress that could not be moved. In terms of defense, it was even stronger than Ding Jiu's battleship. Furthermore, this fortress had been reinforced with arrays, completely isolating it from the outside world. This was also the reason why Dongwu Shui Ying was unable to enter the fortress, even though he had tried to investigate the Beast clan during the 100 years he had been afflicted with the hexing poison. If he couldn't enter, should he attack it head-on? This fortress was too sturdy. Even if Ding Jiu's battleship attacked it, it would still be useless. Hua. Within the fortress, there was a huge humanoid figure lying in the middle of a flowing blood-colored lake. His skin was covered with dark red scales, and he was breathing slowly. Beside the blood-colored lake, there was a huge illusory head and a golden-robed man. The Xia people have given birth to a deity. The great demon god's head said in a low voice. "I know." The golden-robed man's voice was filled with anger. "It's all your fault. Back then, you were too arrogant, and your fleshly body was destroyed. If not for that, the war would have erupted long ago. Who knows? We might have already conquered the entire Xia people's world. Now, the Xia people have given birth to a deity. If it were anyone else, it would have been fine. But I'm afraid that it was Dongbua Shuiying. How can you blame me for this? The great demon god's head said unhappily. Back then, the Xia people had given birth to such a peerless transcendent. How could you or I have predicted this? Back then, if Dongbua Shuiying hadn't destroyed my demonic faction headquarters and destroyed the fleshly body I was about to successfully cultivate, how could we have known that he was so strong? How could we have known that he was so powerful? Why would we have set up a trap to attack him? It was precisely because we surrounded him that he was afflicted with the six ghosts resentment, hexing poison. Even with the hexing poison's influence, his strength has increased by so much. If not for the hexing poison's influence, he would have long since undergone a second primordial bloodline awakening, strengthening his body and nourishing his soul. With his soul growing stronger, and without the hexing poison's influence, his strength would likely be much higher than it is now. Even if it had happened 50 years earlier, the situation might not have been any better. The great demon gods had retorted. The golden-robed man did not reply. That's right. This Dongbua Shuiying's improvement was indeed too fast. Even with the hexing poison's influence, he was still able to fight evenly with the lords of Ulan at the Black-White Deity Mountain. You and I have made an oath. There's no need to blame anyone now. The great demon god's head said, what we need to do now is to decide what we should do. We have to get to the bottom of this. Is the one who became a deity Dongbua Shuiying or not? The golden-robed man frowned. He has grasped hold of three great, two true meanings. If he becomes a deity, the threat he poses will surpass that of ordinary grade, two deity hearts. If he continues to improve his realm, he might even be able to refine the world core of the Xia people's world. The moment he refines it, a lord of a material world will be born. Nobody will be able to fight against him in the Xia people's world. Even if he becomes a deity, refining the world core will probably take several thousand years, the great demon god's head said. If he can return to the Xia people's world and become a deity, he will most likely become an honorary disciple of the Crimson Rock Mountain and obtain a large amount of treasures. If we start a war, he will be the biggest obstacle, the golden-robed man said. Amen. The great demon god's head went silent for a moment before saying, if Dongbua Shuiying becomes a deity, he should have done so secretly within the Crimson Rock Mountain. That way, he won't attract our attention and will have sufficient time to continue growing. But now that the Xia people's world has shown signs of opening their deity sea, I feel that it shouldn't be Dongbua Shuiying. I also feel that the possibility of it being Dongbua Shuiying is lower. After all, he is too young. Condensing a grade 2 deity heart isn't that easy. But no matter how low the possibility is, we can't gamble. After all, from the current intelligence, we know that the transcendents of the Xia people have not become deities. Sikong Yang, Mountain Lord He, and the others have yet to become deities. There should be one transcendent, right? Other than Dongbua Shuiying, who else could it be? The golden-robed man was somewhat vexed. Using the method of elimination, there were only so many demigods in the Xia people, and those who had the ability to become deities could be counted on one's fingers. Once eliminated, the possibility of it being Dongbua Shuiying was actually the highest. Thus, he felt that since he was so young, he shouldn't have reached deity C so quickly. We can't gamble, the golden-robed man said. We have to get to the bottom of this. How do we investigate? The great demon gods had asked. Previously, we've already sent our chi avatars to investigate the ripples, but they didn't find any traces. Clearly, the deity has hidden somewhere else. Through the temporal temple, the golden-robed man said unwillingly. We can only investigate through the temporal temple. We have to get to the bottom of this. Other transcendents becoming deities was a small matter. If Dongbua Shuiying became a deity, that would be too terrifying. Amen. I'll go ask first and see what the temporal temple's asking price is, the great demon gods had said. Please recommend me. Chapter 359. The material world, the deity world, the dark abyss, they could be found almost everywhere in the temporal temple and the bloodshed tavern. The temporal temple could purchase information, help transport goods, or even ask the temporal temple to send them to a faraway place. As for the bloodshed tavern, it was specially used for bounties and killings. Its asking price was very high, and it had its own set of rules. But there was one point. As long as the price was appropriate, the tavern master behind the bloodshed tavern, who was also the magnificent bloodshed god emperor, would personally act. Even powerful existences from the deity world, the bloodshed god emperor was willing to act and kill them. However, the bloodshed tavern's asking price could only be described in one word: black. Their business was spread across countless worlds. The great demon god Erhao was a stage 2 great demon god from the dark abyss. Similarly, within his vast territory, there was a temporal temple. The bloodshed tavern, however, was very numerous. Firstly, the great demon god's territory was large enough, and secondly, the bloodshed tavern's business dealt with almost all living beings. They even did business with mortals from the mortal world. Naturally, their numbers were ridiculous, allowing the demons of the dark abyss to easily find the nearest bloodshed tavern. The temporal temple usually dealt with deities. Comparatively, their numbers were much lower. "I've asked," the great demon god's head said. "How is it?" the golden robe man asked. "Asking about a deity's identity requires 30,000 deity crystals. Asking about Dongbua Shui Ying's strength requires 100,000 deity crystals." The great demon god's head said, "Sorcerer god, what do you think? Do you think we should buy these 2 pieces of information? Dongbua Shui Ying's strength is only 100,000 deity crystals." The golden robe man frowned. If it was a genius from another mortal world asking for such a price, he would definitely feel that it was too much, because such a price was already enough to make ordinary world deities feel heartache. However, Dongbua Shui Ying was from the Xia people's world. In the upcoming war, Dongbua Shui Ying's strength was extremely important and could even be considered as a decisive factor. Asking for 100,000 deity crystals did not seem to fit the temporal temple's character. The temporal temple was not just ordinarily black-hearted, but they were actually a bit merciful this time. Could it be that the one who became a deity wasn't Dongbua Shui Ying? The golden-robed man frowned. "This information?" the great demon god's head asked. "Buy it. I'll buy them all." The golden-robed man said. "Great demonic god, it won't be a problem if you pay for this, right?" The great demon god felt a bit of pain. Although the great demonic god felt a little heartache, this was a crucial moment before the war. How could he be stingy with these divine crystals? Temple sex hall deity god sex abyss was world. I knew it. There must be a reason why the temporal temple asked for such a low price. The great demon god's head growled. The information provided by the temporal temple was about Dongbua Shui Ying's strength at the black-white deity mountain. As for what happened afterwards, the temporal temple said that Dongbua Shui Ying entered the Red Rock Mountain and never came out. His strength cannot be predicted. Then who became a deity? The golden-robed man asked. A plant life form called the blood-creeping flower. The great demon god's head said. Plant life form? Entered the Xia people's world to become a deity? The golden-robed man nodded slightly. This plant life form was probably obtained by Dongbua Shui Ying from the Red Rock Mountain. That Dongbua Shui Ying has yet to appear. It is unknown whether he is alive or dead. And the great demon god was also worried. Blood-creeping flower? They did not care. After all, the blood-creeping flower only had a tyrannical body. Its understanding of the laws of profound mysteries was not that high. When the war broke out, a single blood-creeping flower would not be able to stop their army. What is the exact strength of Dongbua Shui Ying when he was at the black-white deity mountain? The golden-robed man asked. According to the temporal temple's information, Dongbua Shui Ying has grasped hold of 3 grade 2 true meanings: mirage, star, and extreme piercing. Furthermore, he has reached the peak of the stage 2 realm. The great demon god's illusory skull said. He has also grasped hold of a secret skill. It is this secret skill that allowed him to fight evenly with the lords of Ulan. The great demon god's illusory skull continued. Oh, the golden-robed man nodded slightly. He heaved a sigh of relief. Very good. To be able to comprehend a secret skill, this Dongbua Shui Ying is the most talented transcendent in the history of the Xia people. He is indeed very powerful, but he is only at the peak of the Stage 2 realm. To increase one's comprehension of the realm, one must take one step at a time. Nothing can be accomplished in a single step. He has only entered the Crimson Rock Mountain for 4 years. He might not even have reached the Stage 3 realm yet, much less become a deity. Yes, the great demon god's illusory skull nodded. Even though there was a time acceleration region within the Crimson Rock Mountain, they were very clear that in order to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth, a time acceleration region would have an effect. Only in a region with a normal time acceleration would one be able to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth clearly and naturally. Just 4 years? How much could he improve? Even though we have spent some deity crystals, it is still a good thing to understand the situation. The golden-robed man revealed a smile. Should we ask the temporal temple to investigate the strength of the Xia people? The great demon god skull asked. No. If we want to buy this information, we can only do so at the last moment of the war. The golden-robed man shook his head. Furthermore, I reckon that this information will be extremely expensive. I'm afraid we might not be able to afford it. In a war, if one could know all the trump card of the other party, then things would be much easier. The temporal temple believed that their price would be ridiculously high. Don't be anxious. The fact that Dongbua Shui Ying hasn't become a deity is already good news. Based on his cultivation level 4 years ago, he is still very far from becoming a deity. The golden-robed man said, we can take things one step at a time in an orderly fashion. When the time comes, we can crush them with unstoppable strength. The great demon god's illusory skull agreed. Let's follow the plan and do it step by step. Soon, it won't be long before the war begins. The golden-robed man was filled with anticipation. There were very few people who could make them feel fear. The Temple of the Earth God was one of them. Dongbua Shui Ying was another. As for the others, even if the Xia people produced a deity, it would only be a small obstacle for them. Time flowed on. The Xia people continued to migrate in preparation for the upcoming war. In the blink of an eye, 9 years had passed. Crimson Rock Mountain, hoo-hoo. Percy I and the green-haired woman, Shi Wei, flew side by side into the sky, passing through the world membrane and entering the higher dimensional world. They then continued to fly upwards. Passing through the soil, the void, and layers of clouds, they finally arrived at Crimson Dust Island. On Crimson Dust Island, Percy I, the Mycian master revealed a look of joy. Brother Mycian, Percy I smiled as well. Congratulations, congratulations. You've made it here as well. The Mycian master's emotions came from the bottom of his heart. It hadn't been easy for them. Originally, it would have been good if one of the leaders of the 5 teams had been lucky enough to succeed. It would have been incredible if 2 had succeeded. Of course, if the Xia people's local transcendent, Dongbua Shui Ying, were included, there would be a total of 3. I also went crazy, which was why I was lucky enough to break through the final bottleneck and grasp the only me deity heart, Percy I said. Only me? The Mycian master nodded. Your application of the true meaning of only me is superior to mine. After all, to be able to develop 8 arms, your understanding of the true meaning of only me is already extremely high. For you to grasp the only me deity heart, it's not strange. Percy I smiled as well. If he succeeded, he would truly soar to the heavens. Right, where's Dongbua? Percy I hurriedly asked. His relationship with Dongbua Shui Ying was the best amongst the top few who had entered this time. Oh, I just saw him on the path of reflection, the Mycian master said. I'll bring you there. Shui smiled as well. Soon, they arrived at the side of the path of reflection. On the path of reflection, a white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying was walking with difficulty. However, he was already very far away, and his silhouette had become very small. It was just that each step he took was getting more and more difficult. Dongbua is very powerful. He has already passed the first section and is on the second. The Maishan master sighed in praise. Dongbua Shui has cured the hex poison, and he also has the cultivation conditions of the Crimson Rock Mountain, which far surpasses the mortal world. Furthermore, he has the time immemorial body to nourish his soul. His improvement is indeed very fast. Although my power has increased greatly in the past few years, I've still been completely suppressed by him after exchanging blows with him many times. As soon as he finished speaking, far away on the stone path, Dongbua Shui Ying collapsed and fell into the lake below. With a bang, he crashed into the lake, causing water to splash everywhere. Only after that did he break out of the water and soar into the sky. As he flew out, he immediately saw Persei, the Maishan master, Shi Wei, and the others. Ha! Dongbua Shui Ying laughed loudly. Leaving behind an afterimage in midair, he had already arrived where Persei and the others were. Dongbua. Persei smiled brilliantly. Brother Persei, congratulations. Dongbua Shui was also happy to see his good friend. He knew very well what burden Persei was shouldering. To be able to become a protector disciple, regardless of whether it was for Persei's flying sword manner or Persei himself, all hardships would be over, and happiness would begin. Chapter 360. After becoming an honorary disciple, Persei was not in a hurry to leave. After all, even though he and the Maishan Master had to bring back a world deity grade secret technique for the world deities, it was fine as long as they returned before the war broke out. Both of them planned to leave before the 20 years were up. Before leaving, they naturally had to properly cultivate on Crimson Dust Island. Crimson Dust Island was a holy land for cultivation. The moment they left the world of the Xia people, they would not be able to return. They had to make full use of every second they had. Persei grasped the only me deity heart and chose a body-related world deity grade secret technique, the Star River Hidden. This was a secret technique that could develop one's body to an unimaginable level. When cultivated to the extreme, one's entire body could transform into a boundless star river. Other than being weaker than the time immemorial scripture in terms of survivability, it was superior in every other aspect. However, this world deity grade secret technique was extremely difficult to grasp and cultivate. Only the egoistic deity heart, which specialized in body research, could barely grasp it. Of course, regardless of whether it was Persei or the Maishan Master, both of them had learned a world deity grade secret technique. They were not a match for Dongbua Shui. After grasping the deity heart and secret technique, it would be extremely difficult for Persei and the others to improve their strength any further. In fact, they might not even be able to improve in 10,000 years. To grasp the complete deity heart and improve it further, they would need to comprehend the deity heart of other true meanings and fuse them into their own deity heart. This would allow their deity hearts to evolve and improve. Their ultimate goal was to achieve a grade 1 deity heart. But Dongbua Shui was different. His strength was rapidly increasing, and his 3 true meanings were also improving. After all, he was still some distance away from reaching the deity heart realm. Within Dongbua Shui Ying's cultivation paradise, within a spacious courtyard, there was a large tree whose leaves had already turned yellow. As the wind blew, the leaves fell to the ground. The white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying's figure traversed the surrounding space, appearing and disappearing from time to time. The long spear in his hand also pierced into the void. Rip, rip, rip. Black cracks suddenly appeared in the surrounding void, and the black cracks extended into the distance. I've finally mastered it. Dongbua Shui walked out from the void, his eyes filled with joy. After cultivating on Crimson Dust Island for 11 years, the last 2 moves of my spear art have finally been perfected. My strength has already increased to the point where there's no room for improvement. Dongbua Shui Ying's eyes were filled with a trace of disappointment. 11 years. You've improved much more than I expected. 11 years. There was no voodoo poison interference. The time immemorial body nourished the soul, making it even stronger. The cultivation conditions on Crimson Dust Island were even more shocking. In one go, Dongbua Shui Ying raised his 3 true meanings from the initial stage to the peak stage 3rd stage, and there was almost no way for him to advance any further. If he wanted to improve further, he would have to reach the deity heart realm. Shen Exen, Dongbua Shui Ying frowned as well. The 3 true meanings had all reached the peak of the 3rd stage realm, but he did not have the slightest premonition of grasping the deity heart in any of them. Clearly, it was very difficult to take this step. For example, the Maisha Master and Persei had reached the peak of the 3rd stage realm for many years. They had gone through many years of tempering and accumulation, and under the pressure of the Crimson Rock Mountain, they had barely broken through. In reality, in the deity world, there were many who could not take this step. As for which true deity heart he would condense in the future when all 3 true meanings reached the deity heart realm, Dongbua Shui Ying had not thought of it yet. However, there was no need to think too much about it now. Reaching the deity heart realm was the most important thing. My spear art has reached the large success stage. My true meaning has also reached the peak. Dongbua Shui Ying's eyes shone. I hope I can pass through the 6th level this time. The 6th level of the Soaring Cloud Pagoda had already trapped him for more than 3 years. Now, he had mastered the last 2 moves of his spear art. His strength had increased by a lot, but this was also his last gamble. If he failed again, he would not be able to raise his strength in a short period of time. From the outside, the cultivation paradise of the honorary disciples looked like an ordinary courtyard. However, the moment one walked in, the space would suddenly expand. Dongbua Shui Ying walked out of the cultivation paradise and arrived at the path of reflection. He continued walking up the stone steps of the path of reflection, step by step. To cultivate one's heart, one had to constantly clean it. If one did not advance, one would fall behind. Dongbua Shui Ying would walk the path of reflection at least 10 times a day. Hong hong hong. Exhaustion filled his entire soul. Yet his soul was faintly glowing. He walked step by step, walking past the first step, then the second. The exhaustion grew stronger and stronger, almost drowning his entire soul. As Dongbua Shui Ying walked forward step by step, he finally fell off the stone steps and fell into a deep slumber. He fell into the lake below, splashing water everywhere. Lying on the lake, Dongbua Shui Ying smiled. He got up and continued walking for the 2nd time. Again and again, 10 times, Dongbua Shui Ying calmly walked towards the Soaring Cloud Pagoda, raising his head to look at the 9 floors of the pagoda. On the 6th floor of the 9 floors of the pagoda, Dongbua Shui Ying walked up the wooden stairs. The 6th floor of the pagoda was a circular and spacious space. A white-bearded old man sat cross-legged in this space. A thin black sword rested on the old man's knees. The thin sword had no sheath, and it didn't exude any aura. It's been 2 months. Have you improved? The white-bearded old man grinned. Brat, if you haven't improved, then don't waste your time. Senior, this junior wishes to try again. Dongbua Shui Ying said. All right. The white-bearded old man stood up. Wong. All of a sudden, with the white-bearded old man as the center, ripples spread out in all directions. These ripples enveloped every corner of the pagoda. Regardless if it was reality, shadows, or the mirage, everything was permeated by the ripples. Even the particles in the pagoda could be seen clearly. Furthermore, these ripples contained the power of vibration. Even experts at the level of the Lords of Ulan would be disintegrated if they were to stand near the white-bearded old man. This was a terrifying secret technique used by the white-bearded old man. Within the range of the ripples, ordinary newly ascended deities would be easily killed by it. Dongbua Shui Ying stood there, completely unfazed by it. His time immemorial body was able to withstand it easily. He grinned and said, Senior, be careful. Make your move. The white-bearded old man was extremely arrogant. Hua! Dongbua Shui Ying suddenly disappeared into thin air. He's hiding? The white-bearded old man grinned. Countless ripples swept out in all directions, but gradually his expression changed. How is this possible? All of a sudden, the ripples in every corner of the pagoda became even finer, to the point that it was hard for the naked eye to see them clearly. The white-bearded old man carefully examined the area, using all of his investigative techniques. He disappeared. The white-bearded old man was somewhat shocked. He couldn't help but ask, "Brat, you've grasped the Mirage Deity heart?" From the way he saw it, grasping the Mirage Deity heart would make one a part of the Mirage. One's ability to conceal oneself would be even more terrifying than when one was at the Stage 3 realm. In fact, one wouldn't even need to make a move himself. A Mirage true body would be able to match the strength of one's true body. This was also the reason why experts with the Mirage Deity heart were known as the most terrifying assassins. You should have just reached the peak of the Stage 3 realm not too long ago, right? You didn't need to accumulate any strength, and yet you managed to reach the Deity heart realm? The white-bearded old man didn't dare to believe it. Junior isn't that powerful. Junior's true meaning of Mirage has just reached the peak of the Stage 3 realm not too long ago. I don't even have the slightest clue about reaching the Deity heart realm. It's just that I've just perfected this true meaning of Mirage, which is why I'm able to reach this step. Dongbua Shui Ying's voice resounded in the surrounding void. At this moment, Dongbua Shui Ying's confidence grew. This old man couldn't discover him, so his chances of winning had increased by at least 30%. Chapter 361. A Secret Skill of the True Meaning of Mirage. The white-bearded old man smirked as he scanned his surroundings. "It seems like you really have something to rely on this time. Bring it on. You won't be able to defeat me if you keep hiding." Hua hua hua, countless ripples spread out with the white-bearded old man at the center. The ripples were powerful enough to shatter the Mirage doppelganger and other illusory techniques. One had to know that even a newly ascended deity would be shattered by the ripples, let alone Dongbua Shuiying, who is only at the peak of the Stage 3 realm, the Mirage doppelganger. The strength of the Mirage doppelganger could barely suppress an era. There was still a gap between it and a newly ascended deity. The white-bearded old man held onto his black, thin sword as he calmly waited for Dongbua Shuiying to make his move. At this moment, Dongbua Shuiying was hiding in the Mirage. He was the Mirage. If he didn't make a move, no one would be able to detect his presence. Only when he made a move would he be exposed. "It's here." The white-bearded old man's eyes lit up. Following that, he revealed a look of surprise. Boom! Boom! In the void in front of and behind the white-bearded old man, a black spear pierced out. Each of the spears contained the image of a star expanding, collapsing, and perishing. Its might caused one's heart to tremble. The two spears pierced out from two different directions. How was this possible? One of the spears must be fake. Why didn't it shatter under my domain-type secret skill? The white-bearded old man was shocked. This meant that the fake spear could at least withstand the might of his domain-type secret skill. No matter how shocked he was, the white-bearded old man immediately made his move. The black, thin sword in his hand abruptly slashed, and the black, thin sword disappeared into thin air. This black, thin sword turned into an inconspicuous ripple that instantly swept out in two directions. Dang! Pooh! One spear was blocked, but the other spear began to shatter under the black, thin sword's ripple. The surroundings quietened down. Dongbua Shuiying had already kept his spear and continued to hide in the Mirage. At this moment, he had disappeared without a trace, and it was difficult to detect his presence. It actually has 30% of its power. The white-bearded old man looked around and exclaimed, "Your current true meaning of Mirage is only at the peak of the Stage 3 realm. I didn't expect that a clone would actually have 30% of your true strength. This is nothing. Once you grasp the Mirage Deity heart, your Mirage avatar will have the same strength as your main body." Dongbua Shuiying's voice reverberated in the vast space. "Senior swordsmanship's secret skill is indeed powerful. My star meteor annihilation is already very fast, and it's hard to tell which one is real and which one is fake. However, Senior is able to block both of my spears at the same time. Dongbua Shui Ying stayed on Crimson Dust Island for 11 years. Most of the time, he had to practice his spear and comprehend the true meaning. A small portion of the time was spent on researching spear arts and secret techniques. Under the time acceleration of 100 times, he had actually spent more than 200 years researching and finally created this complete set of spear technique secret skill. One of them was an auxiliary secret skill, true condensation. The real was also the illusory, and the illusory was also real. The real is also the illusory was to form the illusory body, which was the stage 3 realm of the true meaning of mirage. The illusory is also the real was to allow a mirage avatar to completely mirror the main body, condensing an identical body with the same strength. This body was called the mirage true body. This was the mirage deity heart realm. During a battle, the main body would be hidden, and it would be hard for the enemy to find traces of it. The one to attack was the mirage true body, which was extremely powerful. Dongbua Shui Ying's current realm was quite high. Furthermore, he had seen the imprints left behind by the various seniors on Crimson Dust Island. He had been constantly pondering and trying his best to condense the mirage avatar into a true body. Until now, this secret skill, true condensation, could be considered to have reached the pinnacle. His main body could condense and become one with the scenery within the mirage, and he could also use 30% of the main body strength. Senior, try this move again. Dongbua Shui Ying's voice resounded in the vast space. Hoo! 2 black spears pierced out from the same direction. This time, the spear tips faintly revealed the scene of the extreme rolling piercing point. That extreme point was like the beginning and the end of everything. The 2 spears were extremely fast. The moment they pierced out, they pierced through the void and disappeared from sight. The white-bearded old man had a smile on his face as he once again waved the black thin sword in his hand. The black thin sword also disappeared into nothingness. The 2 spears and the thin sword were shuttling back and forth in another layer, clashing continuously. One of the spears would occasionally dissipate and condense again. When it condensed again, it would suddenly turn into a real spear. As for the other spear, it was fake. It was hard to distinguish between the real and the fake. Pu. The 2 spears were extremely fast. On a deeper layer of energy, they crazily attacked. The black thin sword could only defend with difficulty. Pooh! A spear instantly pierced through the defense, piercing into the white-bearded old man's chest. The spear tip then emerged from his back. At this moment, the entire spear finally appeared in the real world. So fast. The white-bearded old man stared at Dongbua Shui Ying in shock. Your sword is even faster. It's a pity that you only have 1 sword while I have 2 spears. The white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying walked out of the mirage. He kept his spear as well. That's why I won by luck. There's no such thing as luck in victory. The white-bearded old man's chest injury recovered. He shook his head. On the 5th floor, you were able to use clumsiness to defeat me. On the 6th floor, you actually used speed against speed, combining speed and illusion to defeat me. I accept my loss wholeheartedly. Dongbua Shui Ying, your 3 true meanings have yet to reach the deity heart stage, yet you were able to reach the threshold of becoming an inner disciple. Truly, truly admirable. When I was a transcendent, I was far inferior to you. Senior is overpraising me. Dongbua Shui Ying hurriedly said, All right, you can leave now. You've won. You won the 6th floor. You're now an inner disciple. The white-bearded old man said. He truly admired Dongbua Shui Ying. Secret skills weren't that easy to create. But Dongbua Shui Ying had created an entire set of secret spear techniques. Moreover, when he created them, it was clear that he had considered coordination. When the spear techniques were coordinated, their power would explosively increase. Within an elegant pavilion on Crimson Dust Island, a man dressed in luxurious robes, crimson rock, walked out of the pavilion. His face was filled with joy. he actually became an inner disciple so quickly. At the peak of the towering sky-reaching vine that pierced through 2 levels, a green-haired girl, Wei, appeared. She looked towards the distant crimson dust island, her eyes filled with disbelief. Ying has become an inner disciple. The upper world of Crimson Rock Mountain was incomparably vast, spanning a distance of 1 billion kilometers. Countless life forms flourished here, and this place was divided into countless countries and sections. The majority of them didn't know that this was just a world within the Eden treasure, Crimson Rock Mountain. There were countless deity worlds and dark abyss outside. Within this world, the 2 world deities naturally had the highest status. Amen. Hidden within an ordinary manner, a thick-robed youth was currently researching a complicated deity seal. The deity seal was floating, and countless golden deity runes were changing. The thick-robed youth suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the floating deity seal. He then raised his head and looked towards the direction of Crimson Dust Island. What? That kid has already become an inner disciple? How many years has it been? Within another Sword Dao sect. The scarlet-cloaked youth was the elder of this Sword Dao sect. Occasionally, he would teach a few disciples. This Sword Dao sect ranged from transcendents who had just entered the sect to deity experts like the sect master. Not a single one of them knew that this scarlet-cloaked youth was an incomparably powerful world deity. Master, I still have to train like this. How long will I have to train for? A chubby youth shouted. He was holding a sword and attacking a large tree in front of him. The tree's injuries were constantly recovering. Continue training. If not, then scram. The scarlet-cloaked youth sat in the distance, eating and drinking to his heart's content as he casually spoke. The chubby youth felt helpless. Why did he have to take this person as his master? No wonder his master had the fewest disciples in the sect. Amen. The scarlet-cloaked youth raised his head abruptly. A sharp glint flickered in his eyes. That little fellow has already south. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. Master, don't go. The chubby youth shouted. Helpless, he could only continue training with his sword. His master did not allow him to stop, so he did not dare to. For figures appeared one after another at the foot of the soaring cloud pagoda, staring at the exit. When the white-robed Dongbua Shuang walked out, he could not help but jump in fright. Why did these 4 fellows suddenly appear at the entrance of the pagoda? He knew Senior Wei and Senior Crimson Rock, but who were the other 2? The thick-robed youth's aura was restrained, but it was like a bottomless pit. The other scarlet-cloaked youth, on the other hand, had a sharpness that made one's heart palpitate. A faint aura from him caused Dongbua Ying's heart to tremble. These 2 were terrifying existences. Most likely, they could kill him with a single breath. Junior apprentice brother. The thick-robed youth grinned. We have one more junior apprentice brother now. The scarlet-cloaked youth also revealed a rare smile. Dongbua Ying was stunned. Crimson Rock, who was beside him, laughed and said, Dongbua Ying, these 2 are also inner disciples of my Crimson Rock Mountain. When the sacred master died, the 2 of them were unlucky enough to be cultivating in Crimson Rock Mountain. Since they are both world deities, under the laws of the material plane, they are unable to leave Crimson Rock Mountain. They can only stay here forever. Star. Chapter 362. Dongbua Ying sighed inwardly. These 2 world deity senior apprentice brothers were truly pitiful. Not even deities from the outside could forcefully enter the material realm, much less world deities. Instead, we should thank Master. The thick-robed youth said, back then, even Master died in that battle. How dangerous was the situation? In order to prevent his treasure from falling into the hands of the enemy, or to prevent us from falling into the hands of the enemy, Master forcefully threw Crimson Rock Mountain into the material realm, allowing us to survive. Amen. The scarlet-cloaked youth nodded. Otherwise, we would have been killed long ago. Even powerful existences had fallen. If the disciples of powerful existences were to fall into the hands of the enemy, they would most likely die as well. The material realm, although it rejected deities and even stronger existences. Crimson Rock Mountain was an Eden treasure, capable of isolating the entire material realm from probing. The material realm only treated it as an object. As long as one could break through the layers of membranes, they would not be rejected by the laws of the material realm. Of course, forcibly breaking through the layers of membranes was not an easy task. I'm goodbye. The thick-robed youth looked towards Dongbua Shui Ying. Amongst the inner disciples under Master, I am ranked second. I am He Fei Yun, ranked seventh amongst the inner disciples, the scarlet-cloaked youth said. The nearby Shiwei looked towards Dongbua Shuang. Dongbua Brat, you are ranked 37th. Dongbua Shuang immediately said, Greetings, Senior Goodbye, Senior Fei Yun. Little junior brother. The thick-robed youth goodbye sighed. Although Master accepted many disciples, the deity world is still a dangerous place. Over the years, many have died. Some have lived for too long, but their cultivation of the heart was insufficient, resulting in self-doubt. Eventually, their true deity hearts crumbled and their bodies were destroyed, including you. There are only 12 inner disciples who are still alive. Dongbua Shuang already knew how cruel the deity world was. Even a powerful existence like Sacred Master Crimson Dust had died, let alone world deities. If it wasn't cruel enough, why would the universe god spend so much effort just for universe god level secret skill? Senior apprentice brother, goodbye. Did you say that because you lived too long, you started to doubt yourself, and your true deity heart collapsed? Dongbua Shui Ying was surprised. Lived too long? Would he die? Have you lived for 100 million years? The thick-robed youth goodbye looked at Dongbua Shuang. What about 1 billion years? 10 billion years? Dongbua Shui Ying was taken aback. Without sufficient inner state, even if you have a long lifespan, you won't be able to bear it. As you live longer and longer, some will become more and more silent, while others will become more and more deranged. It's common for one's true deity heart to have a breakdown. It's normal for one to feel too tired and self-destruct. The thick-robed youth continued. There are also some world deities who temporarily seal their memories, giving up all their strength to reincarnate and start a new life. This way, even if they awaken in the future, their old soul will still be nourished, and they might be able to live for a period of time. However, if one reincarnates and seals their memories, without any strength, it's very possible for their soul to dissipate, even when they're still weak. That's still a true death. Dongbua Shui Ying sighed inwardly. So there were so many things that could happen after living for so long. Self-destruction? Madness? Reincarnation? However, 1 billion years, 10 billion years was indeed a long time. He didn't dare to imagine what it would be like to live for so long. The history of the Xia people's world was only tens of millions of years old. Senior apprentice brother, the scarlet-cloaked youth beside him said, becoming an inner disciple will also bring you many benefits. Dongbua Shui Ying revealed a smile. The reason he worked so hard to become an inner disciple was for the sake of these benefits. For the sake of the Xia people, he would have more confidence in the war. Of course, the huge increase in his strength had already increased the chances of his side winning the war. Do you know one thing? The scarlet-cloaked youth revealed a smile. Inner disciples are allowed to bring a family member into Crimson Rock Mountain. Bring a family member? Dongbua Shui couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised as he looked towards Crimson Rock. The artifact spirit, Senior Crimson Rock, nodded. Right? Honorary disciples are the most common, and they aren't allowed to bring anyone in. Inner disciples are highly valued by the Sacred Master, and are allowed to bring a family member with them. They can even cultivate on Crimson Dust Island. However, world deity grade secret techniques and the like cannot be obtained unless you make a sacrifice and choose to pass on the world deity grade secret technique to your family member. As for personal disciples, you can bring as many as you want. Of course, you can only bring a maximum of 3 to cultivate on Crimson Dust Island at the same time. This is also to prevent Crimson Dust Island from becoming too noisy. After all, the Sacred Master often stayed here in the past. Dongbua Shui nodded. Personal disciples were indeed different. They could bring a group of people into the lower realm first. As for Crimson Dust Island, they could only bring 3 at the same time. That meant they could take turns. Senior Crimson Rock, I wish to bring my wife in, Eastern European Snow Eagle said. A small matter. Let her enter the void region surrounding Crimson Rock Mountain. That is the range of my power, Crimson Rock said. I can directly teleport her in. Good. Donghua Shui Ying revealed a happy expression. As for the benefits of being an inner disciple, let me tell you, Crimson Rock continued. Donghua Shui Ying listened, but his heart was already boiling. It had been a long time since he had seen his wife. Although in reality, only 15 years had passed. Adding in the time acceleration, it had already been more than 200 years. It had truly been too long. Infernal world. Nowadays, the transcendence of the Xia people all resided in the Xia capital, and the city was unprecedentedly lively. There used to be a large number of attendants and servants here, but now there were very few of them. Transcendents, legend knights, and mages all lived here, as well as their families and relatives. There were also many other talents and so on. Transcendents and below did not have the qualifications to have attendants and servants. Even if they had attendants and servants, they would only have 1 or 2. Only Transcendents could have 8 or 10 servants. The population of the Xia capital had reached 50 million. Of course, most of them had entered the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world and other spaces within the Infernal Palace. Nowadays, many spaces have been completely developed for people to live in. Apart from the Xia capital, there are also countless people living in other regions of the Infernal world. In a courtyard within the Infernal Palace, Jing Xiao was wearing a light blue robe and was currently researching a spell. The aura emitted from her body was becoming more and more extraordinary. After receiving a large amount of precious spirit fruits and spirit liquids from Donghua Shui Ying, coupled with her own high innate talent, she actually broke through to the demigod realm in one go. Yuan Qing had also received a few spirit fruits and treasures from the Xia people and had also become a demigod. In terms of innate talent, Jing Xiao might not be as good as Donghua Shui Ying, but in reality, she was not inferior to Yuan Qing or Qi Qiu Bai. Because she was a mage, mages would be slower at the beginning, but they would start to exert themselves later on. Mountain Lord He and Elder Ao Lan of the Beast race were both mages. From this, it could be seen that mages would become more and more powerful in the later stages of their cultivation. Okay, I know. Jing Qiu was very excited. I'm coming. Hua! A vast amount of magic power surged out from Jing Qiu's body. The magic power of a demigod quickly formed another Jing Qiu beside her, leaving behind a dermic avatar. Jing Qiu's main body immediately turned into a streak of light and left. He tore open a spatial passageway and arrived at a depth of 100,000 kilometers underground. There were vines vaguely appearing in the surroundings. It was the blood-creeping flower. Currently, the blood-creeping flower was close to the Crimson Rock Mountain. After Jing Qiu appeared, she flew directly towards the dark void surrounding Crimson Rock Mountain. The dark void seemed very small. As Jing Qiu flew over, her body rapidly shrank. In contrast, the dark void seemed to have become much, much larger. Buzz! A wave of energy emanated from Crimson Rock Mountain and enveloped Jing Qiu. Then, Jing Qiu disappeared into thin air. On Crimson Dust Island, next to a short tree, red leaves were falling. Donghua Shui Ying was currently standing there, seemingly waiting calmly. However, a trace of anxiety could be seen in his eyes. Buzz! The space in front of him slightly distorted, and a figure appeared. It was a beautiful woman wearing a light blue robe. She was known as the #1 beauty of the Xia people, Jing Qiu. After becoming a demigod, her aura had become even more ethereal. Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu's eyes were filled with tears as she immediately flew over. Jing Qiu. Donghua Shui Ying also stretched out his arms and hugged his wife. Chapter 363. Jing Xiu could sense the changes in her husband. Ever since he was poisoned by the six ghosts' resentment, Dongbua Shui Ying's body had been in poor shape. He would occasionally break out in cold sweat, and his body would tremble slightly. But at this moment, when she was hugging her husband, she could feel a vigorous and powerful force contained within Shui Ying's body. This force made her feel somewhat startled. This was the time immemorial body. Even though he was trying to hide it, as a demigod mage, Jing Xiu could still sense that her husband had been reborn. The two separated. Snow Eagle, are you completely recovered? Jing Xiu could not hide her excitement. I couldn't be better. Dongbua Shuang chuckled. I'm so well that I can have babies. You're smiling the moment we meet. You're really. Jing Xiu felt helpless. She looked around. This is your residence in Crimson Rock Mountain. I just changed it. Dongbua Shuang laughed. Before, I was just an honorary disciple. In the past 11 years, I, your man, passed the path of reflection and the soaring cloud pagoda, and finally became an inner disciple. This is the cultivation paradise of an inner disciple. As for you, as my wife, you can also live with me. Come, I'll bring you to the meditation room. Dongbua Shuang brought his wife to tour his cultivation paradise. Jing Xiu looked around the entire cultivation paradise. After learning that a meditation room cost 50 million deity crystals and experiencing the time acceleration, she was shocked. 50 million deity crystals? Just a meditation room? Our Xia people only have so little. Jing Xiu was a little dazed. This was built by Holy Master Crimson Dust. Holy Master Crimson Dust is a powerhouse of the God world. What's so special about this? Dongbua Shuang said. It's said that the cultivation conditions of a personal disciple are much better than mine. Actually, as an inner disciple, I already have the qualifications to listen to Holy Master Crimson Dust's guidance. Unfortunately, Holy Master Crimson Dust is dead. I can only bury my head in cultivation. All right, since you live with me, you can also use the meditation room in this cultivation paradise. There's also the Ascending Cloud Tower, Heartseeker Path, Inheritance Imprint Valley, and so on. You can take a look at all of them, Dongbua Shuang said. Really? I'm not a disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain. Jing Xiu couldn't believe it. Look, Crimson Dust Island hasn't suffered any losses. Dongbua Shuang curled his lips. There are some precious treasures, world deity, grade secret techniques, and inheritances, but you won't be able to obtain a single one of them. That's rare and expensive. This is already very good. The cultivation conditions here are much better than those of the Xia people. Jing Xiu was very satisfied. Dongbua Shuang smiled and said, Let's go, I'll show you around Crimson Dust Island. On the same day, Dongbua Shuang brought his wife around Crimson Dust Island. Jing Xiu also began her days of cultivation on Crimson Dust Island. Her avatar had always been in the infernal world, and as long as it came to Crimson Rock Mountain once a year to replenish some of its energy, it would be able to sustain itself. Now that the hexing poison was no longer bothering them, the husband and wife decided to have a child. However, the higher one's strength was, the harder it was to have a child. This was especially true after cultivating the time immemorial body, which made it even harder to leave behind a bloodline. After all, with such a bloodline, even if the child was not as strong as the father, he would still be extremely powerful. After all, he would far surpass any primordial life form or demon descendant in the history of the Xia people. Within a small courtyard on Crimson Dust Island, the two world deities, Gubai and He Fei Yun, as well as Shi Wei and Crimson Rock, were gathered here. Dongbua Shuang was present as well. You've been promoted from honorary disciple to inner disciple. Thus, you can only choose a world deity grade secret technique. You can also choose any treasure on this list. Senior Crimson Rock said, Of course, you can also get a set of world deity weapons. These weapons can be specially refined into blood-refined deity weapons for you. If this blood-refined deity weapon is nurtured well, it can be nurtured all the way to the top-grade world deity grade. Dongbua, this blood-refined deity weapon alone, is worth 5 million deity crystals. This is also the most precious gift an inner disciple can receive. Dongbua Shuang nodded. World deity grade secret technique? Crimson Rock Mountain would not suffer any losses. As for the treasures on the list, the price would not be too high. The number of deity crystals one could choose from was only 1,000,000. That was 10 times that of honorary disciples. The only exception was weapons. A set of world deity weapons would not be too valuable, as they were all low-grade world deity grade weapons. It was estimated that they would only cost a few 100,000 deity crystals. Only the blood-refined deity weapon, which could be nurtured to the top-grade world deity grade, would cost 5,000,000 deity crystals. Many ordinary world deities would not be able to take out such a sum. Only world deities who had gone through many hardships and accumulated wealth could take out so many deity crystals to obtain a precious blood-refined deity weapon for themselves. The blood-refined deity weapon had a huge advantage. It was easy to control, and its power was greater than other weapons of the same level. You are still a demigod transcendent. Crimson Rock said, the blood-refined deity weapon that my Crimson Rock Mountain will refine for you should have the power of a top-grade deity grade weapon upon completion. That way, you can barely use it. If it were a low-grade world deity grade weapon upon completion, you would not be able to use it. Its power is comparable to the Sorcerer God Saber you mentioned before and the blood-refined deity weapon of your Xia people, Senior Snow. However, the difference is that this weapon of yours is already at this level from the start, and it can be cultivated to an extremely high level. Dongbua Shuang nodded. What requirements do you have for this blood-refined deity weapon? Crimson Rock asked. A spear. Dongbua Shuang did not hesitate. An ordinary spear. The spear shaft and spearhead should be the same size as the Stellar Fire Cloud spear. The size of the Stellar Fire Cloud spear was very convenient for him to use. His current low-grade deity spear could be controlled to slightly lengthen its length. A deity weapon could be long or short, big or small. However, if he didn't need to change his deity energy, it was naturally better not to change it. All right. Crimson Rock nodded. Can I exchange that set of world deity weapons for deity crystals? Dongbua Shuang asked. World deity weapons? He had no use for them at all. Sure. Crimson Rock nodded. You can exchange it for 500,000 deity crystals. He was willing to help out with such a small matter. Senior goodbye, Senior Feiyun. Dongbua Shuang giggled. Senior Crimson Rock, Senior Shiwei, I can choose any world deity grade secret technique for 500,000 deity crystals. I can also choose any treasure on the list. Everyone, please help me. What should I choose that will allow me to defeat the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God? Dongbua Shuang said hurriedly. The 4 people present began to ponder. The Sorcerer God is a lord of a material world. He can obtain all sorts of war weapons from the deity world without end. Until the war breaks out, it is impossible to predict what he will do. The thick-robed youth, goodbye, frowned. It will be very difficult to devise a strategy to win. Second senior apprentice brother. The scarlet-cloaked youth beside him shook his head. This isn't the study of magic. There is no strategy to win a war. It is enough as long as the chances of victory are as high as possible. Right? Dongbua Shuang nodded from the side. The war strategy would depend on these 4 seniors. At this juncture, Dongbua Shuang would not play the hero and make a rash decision. Your strength is the foundation. The scarlet-cloaked youth said, in a mortal world, deities cannot enter. Your own strength will display a miraculous effect, and you will soon obtain a top-grade deity ranked blood-refined deity spear. Its attack power is not bad. However, it is still not strong enough. Still not strong enough? Dongbua Shuang was astonished. The Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God, their deity avatars are at most at the limit of demigods. His time immemorial body, his secret art. If he could obtain a blood-refined deity weapon, he would probably be able to fight a late-stage deity expert. With such strength, he would be able to bully peak demigods with ease. You're wrong. The thick-robed youth looked at Dongbua Shuang. Think about it carefully. It's like you hiding in the mirage. Others are 10 or 100 times stronger than you, but they can't hit you. What's the use of that? The sorcerer god and the great demon god are at a much higher realm than you. The sorcerer god was able to become a lord of a material world. His talent must be extremely high. I estimate that he should have a grade 1 deity heart and become a world deity. The thick-robed youth shook his head. A grade 1 deity heart. Dongbua Shuang. Even if you raise your 3 true meanings to the deity heart stage, there's still a huge gap between you and a grade 1 deity heart. Do you understand the gap between you and the sorcerer god? The great demon god is at a higher realm than the sorcerer god. It can be said that even though the two of them are suppressed to the limit of demigods, they can come and go without a trace. However, they come and go without a trace. Against them, many of your moves will not be effective, the thick-robed young man said. Dongbua Shuang fell into deep thought. That's why you have to constantly increase your advantage. The scarlet-cloaked youth said, to them, your greatest advantage is your immense strength. Your strength is not suppressed, and you'll even receive the love and care of the entire mortal world. That's why you have to continue increasing your strength. When your strength reaches a certain level, a single strike from you will be able to shatter the real world, the mirage, or any other world. As long as there's even a trace of the shockwave, it's not something a demigod, apex demigod like them can contend against. Dongbua Shuang nodded slightly. Moreover, against those weapons of war, as long as your strength is strong enough, you'll be able to defeat them head-on. The scarlet-cloaked youth said, but how do I increase my strength? Dongbua Shuang asked. He seemed to have reached his limit in all aspects, unless he made another breakthrough in his realm. But this wasn't something he could achieve just because he wanted to. World deity, grade, secret techniques. The scarlet-cloaked youth said, you've already cultivated the time, immemorial body. However, it's not suitable for you to cultivate other body-related secret techniques. Thus, you can only choose world deity grade secret techniques related to Do, Qi, and God energy. Moreover, the stronger the better. Amen, Dongbua Shuang agreed. Your true meaning of star has reached the peak of stage 3. Perhaps there's a world deity grade secret technique that you might be able to grasp. The thick-robed youth said. What secret technique? Dongbua Shuang was filled with anticipation. The thick-robed youth and the scarlet-cloaked youth exchanged glances. Clearly, they had thought of the same thing. The scarlet-cloaked youth then said, Great chaotic true force. Chapter 364. Great chaotic true force? What about the other world deity ranked secret techniques? Are there any that I can cultivate? Dongbua Shuang asked. Although his 2 senior brothers believed that this secret technique was more suitable for him, he still had to compare them. Your 3 true meanings have yet to reach the deity heart realm. Apart from the time immemorial scripture, which you can use as a nothingness body, the other world deity ranked secret techniques will be difficult for you. Among them, there are 2 battle aura-related secret techniques that are relatively easy for you, but there is still hope for you to learn them. One of them is the Profound Handle Star Force, which focuses on defense and has decent strength. As for the Great Chaotic True Force, it focuses on extreme strength. The thick-robed youth explained. And in this war, you have the time immemorial body, which is more than enough to protect you. What you need is even greater strength, which is why 7th Brother and I believe that the Great Chaotic True Force is more suitable for you. Dongbua Shuang nodded and couldn't help but ask, Senior Brother Goodbye, you said that the Great Chaotic True Force is somewhat difficult for me. It shouldn't be too difficult, right? If you had reached the Star Deity Heart Realm, you would have been able to learn it easily. But now that you have created your own true meaning of Star Secret Technique, you should be able to succeed if you put in a little more effort, Goodbye said. It's hard to say how long it will take you to learn it. If you comprehend it deeply enough, you should be able to learn it quickly. But if you get stuck, you won't be able to learn it even when the war breaks out. Amen. Dongbua Shuang felt the pressure. He had to learn it. How should I choose the treasure? Dongbua Shuang asked, "How can I win?" The scarlet-cloaked youth said, "Junior brother, don't worry. You still have enough time. Second brother, and I will think about it carefully and prepare the best plan for you." Senior Shi Wei and Senior Crimson Rock had high standards, but they mainly followed Sacred Master Crimson Rock. Their two senior brothers, on the other hand, had roamed the deity world and experienced many dangers, so they had more combat experience. Amen, Dongbua Shuang nodded. With your two senior brothers helping you, you don't have to worry. Let's go and accept the great chaotic true force inheritance. By the way, you don't plan on cultivating any other world deity ranked secret techniques, right? Senior Crimson Rock asked. It's the great chaotic true force. Dongbua Shuang nodded. He also felt that what his two senior brothers said made sense. If the enemy's strength was suppressed, then he should do everything he could to increase his strength. The stronger, the better. When the gap was large enough, no matter how profound one's laws of profound mysteries were, it would be useless. This was the so-called breaking through with force. In a hidden cave, Shua, Dongbua Shuang, was teleported into this cavern. There was nothing else in this cavern except for a droplet of water that was suspended in midair. That droplet of water was dark and gloomy, as if it was swallowing all light. Upon closer inspection, one could feel that within the darkness of that droplet of water, there was a heaven-destroying and earth-shattering law of profound mysteries. Dongbua Shuang couldn't help but hold his breath. Dongbua Shuang, accept the inheritance. Crimson Rock's voice echoed within the cavern. Xiao! That floating droplet of water immediately shot out a ray of black light that entered between Dongbua Shuang's eyebrows. A large amount of information immediately entered his mind. I, Dongbua Shuang, swear under the witness of His Majesty Bloodblade. Dongbua Shuang couldn't help but swear the oath. Translucent words of the oath floated within the cavern. This was the key to the inheritance. If one didn't swear the oath, they wouldn't be able to obtain more information within the inheritance. Thus, in the deity world and dark abyss, even if some powerful existences learned a world deity ranked secret technique, they wouldn't be able to leak it. This was because if they did, they would be violating the oath and would be killed by His Majesty Bloodblade. After swearing the oath, Dongbua Shuang's sea of consciousness immediately converged into a droplet of water. This droplet of water contained countless flowing runes that were profound and hard to comprehend. There was too much information, and his soul was too weak to receive all of it. He could only condense it into a droplet of water and gradually transmit the information according to what he could accept. What a powerful, great chaotic true force! Dongbua Shuang exclaimed. The great chaotic true force was divided into 6 levels. It was a complicated transformation of the most basic energy, such as battle chi and divine power, into a more powerful and unique energy. It was like turning mud into bricks. It was like turning stone into gold. Under the guidance of the world deity rank secret technique, great chaotic true force, created by the almighty existences of the deity world, its efficiency would be even higher. Even if the almighty existences of the deity world created it and followed it, the requirements for one's realm would still be extremely high. The first level was already extremely difficult. If one could master all 6 levels and reach the realm of large success, the power would be. One had to know that the great chaotic true force was formed from countless droplets of water. And once it reached large success, every droplet of true force would contain a chaotic whole. What was a chaotic whole? A chaotic whole was the end of a world's collapse and destruction. In terms of weight, a chaotic whole was no less than an entire mortal world. And this was just the power of a single droplet of true force. Countless droplets formed the vigorous, great chaotic true force. If one truly mastered it, the power would be unimaginable. Just a single ripple would be enough to turn an entire planet into dust. A single breath of air would be enough to kill countless deities. What it pursued was the pinnacle of power and might. Oh, truly amazing. Countless runes appeared in Dongbua Shui Ying's sea of consciousness. Hundreds of millions of runes seemed to form a single entity, layer upon layer. The runes were intricately linked, and in the end, they formed a single entity. It was extremely mysterious. Compared to this, the secret technique I created is indeed much simpler. Dongbua Shuang felt rather excited. There is still a difference between secret techniques and secret techniques. This secret technique was a fixed set of runes, while his secret technique was formed by many different combinations. However, after seeing the first layer of runes, which were incomparably complex and contained the profound mysteries of the star deity heart, Dongbua Shui Ying had many ideas about his secret technique. In the past, he thought that it was already very complete, but now he felt that it was still too simple and could still be improved. Time passed day by day. In his own cultivation grotto heaven, Dongbua Shui Ying and Jing Xiu were both studying and cultivating. The time in the cultivation grotto heaven was 100 times faster than normal. Oh, Jing Xiu had been studying Senior Snow, the divine weapon that protected her clan. Senior Snow was a top-grade, divine-ranked, blood-refined divine weapon. The divine spear that Dongbua Shui Ying was going to obtain in the future was only at this level. Jing Xiu naturally studied it carefully so that she could unleash even more power from Senior Snow. Dongbua Shui Ying, on the other hand, was reflecting the first layer of the great chaotic true force with his secret technique. He discovered that this way, the efficiency of studying the first layer of the great chaotic true force was much higher, and the power of his secret technique was also increasing. He even changed the name of his star true intent secret technique from the star rotation to the chaotic suppression. He wanted to rely on this move to ruthlessly crush the sorcerer god and the great demon god. However, he was still in the process of perfecting it. Dongbua, Dongbua. A voice came from the outside world. Dongbua Shui Ying opened his eyes. What happened? Jing Xiu also stopped cultivating. It's Senior Crimson Rock. Dongbua Shui Ying smiled. He actually came specifically to find me. This is very rare. If I'm not wrong, it should be that my blood-refined divine spear has been completed. Jing Xiu was overjoyed. Completed? Let's go take a look. This is only my guess. It might not be about the blood-refined divine spear. Dongbua Shui Ying led his wife out of the silent room and out of his own cultivation grotto heaven. At the entrance of the grotto heaven courtyard stood the gorgeously dressed Senior Crimson Rock. Dongbua, the blood-refined divine spear has been completed. Crimson Rock smiled and waved his hand. Come take a look. A black spear appeared out of nowhere and floated in midair. The black spear's shaft was covered in countless black flames, and the spearhead was covered in a layer of golden light. An invisible power was released, and it was as if a vast star had stopped in midair, exuding a boundless, oppressive might. The spearhead carried a terrifying sharpness that caused one's heart to palpitate. Inside the spear shaft and spearhead were countless veins. These veins were the divine pattern veins that Dongbua Shui Ying had poured his blood into. The moment Shui Ying saw it, he felt a soul resonance. Good. Dongbua Shui Ying couldn't help but shout out. The more he looked at it, the more he liked it. He couldn't help but reach out and grab it. The entire spear let out a low humming sound. I haven't opened my spear at sea yet, so I can't nurture it. However, I'll definitely treat you well in the future. Shui Ying held onto the spear as he softly muttered. The flames on the spear shaft and the golden light on the spear tip immediately retracted. Dongbua, this spear will accompany you for a long time in the future. Give a name. Crimson Rock smiled and said. Chapter 365. Name of the spear. Dongbua Shui Ying muttered to himself for a moment. Then a faint killing intent flashed in his eyes. Let's call it Blood Drinker Spear. Blood Drinker Spear? Senior Crimson Rock and Jing Xiu instantly understood. Blood Drinker was a very ordinary spear name. However, both of them could sense the killing intent in Dongbua Shui Ying's words and understood what he was thinking. Dongbua, then I hope that you can use this Blood Drinker Spear to drink the blood of your enemies during the war, Crimson Rock said. Definitely. Dongbua Shuang nodded. That's right. Ordinary demigods who use divine weapons are usually low-grade divine weapons. But this Blood Drinker Spear of yours is a top-grade divine weapon. Although you can use it as a blood-refined divine weapon, it will still place a huge burden on your soul. Therefore, if you feel tired and have a splitting headache, you must not continue using it. You must rest and allow your soul to recover before continuing, Crimson Rock said. Ha, don't worry, I know. Dongbua Shuang laughed. Jingxiu also has a blood-refined divine weapon. This has long been recorded by the Xia people. However, I estimate that with my powerful soul, even if I use it nonstop, I can probably use it for an hour. Yes, Crimson Rock nodded. More or less. Then there's no problem. Moreover, I don't need to use the Blood Drinker Spear in normal battles. Dongbua Ying said, at the crucial moment, I can use the Great Chaotic True Force to increase the power of the Blood Drinker Spear, catching the enemy off guard. It's actually quite effective. Your soul is powerful and can be used for a long time. Jingxiu, you must be careful. I'm afraid you'll need to rest after using it for a quarter of an hour. Crimson Rock looked at Jingxiu. Understood. Jingxiu smiled. Time passed day by day. Dongbua Shuang grasped every day. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to master the Great Chaotic True Force before the war broke out. Every day, he spent more than half of his time in the silent room, keeping time 100 times faster. Compared to him, Jingxiu spent even more time in the silent room. As a mage, her main goal was to research magical techniques. The runes on Senior Snow were too complicated, and the more she understood, the more excited she became. The 13th year on Red Dust Island. One day, on a large tree, the leaves were green and full of vitality. Under the tree, Dongbua Ying was sitting cross-legged. He had just finished practicing his spear technique, and he immediately sat down to cultivate the Great Chaotic True Force. Buzz. Within his Dantian's sea of Qi, his fiery red, transcendent warrior energy, which had reached the limit of a demigod, surged like countless flames and spread everywhere. Suddenly, above the vast Qi sea, countless runes began to converge, as if forming a mystical building. If I use the Blood Drinker Spear together with my secret skill, I should be able to match a peak deity in terms of power. Dongbua Ying revealed a look of delight. The pursuit of extreme power. The Great Chaotic True Force together with the Blood Drinker Spear and his secret skill allowed his power to reach a higher level. Although the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God are of a higher level than me, my power is much stronger than their god avatars. However, the most difficult thing to deal with is their war weapons. Dongbua Ying thought to himself. If it were just a god avatar, the threat would not be so great. More importantly, the Sorcerer God would likely establish a stable spatial tunnel. When that time came, the army would swarm in. The Great Demon God's avatar and the Sorcerer God's avatar would likely personally control the war weapons to fight him. You succeeded? The two senior brothers were overjoyed. The thick-robed youth, goodbye, smiled and said, since you've already cultivated it, you can follow this plan. Old Seven and I have discussed it in detail. You could choose any one of the requirements on the list. How about this? Choose this blueprint and give it to me. I can personally refine a war fortress worth more than 2 million deity crystals for you, and I'll give you another 1,000,000 deity crystals to exchange for other treasures. A war fortress and 1,000,000 deity crystals? Dongbua Ying could not help but feel excited. Thank you, second senior brother. There's no need to thank me. This blueprint is nothing to you, but it's very precious to me. Help me obtain it while you can choose any request. It's a win-win situation, the thick-robed youth said. I'll hand over that war fortress to you in 3 days. I can give you 1,000,000 deity crystals right now. Dongbua Ying was very moved. Blueprint? He did not even understand it. If he were asked to exchange it, he would at most exchange for 1,000,000 deity crystals. Now, he was asking for 1,000,000 deity crystals and a war fortress personally refined by his second senior brother that was worth more than 2 million deity crystals. Take a look. This is the plan we've come up with. The scarlet-cloaked youth beside him flipped his hand and took out a scroll. He unfurled the scroll, which was filled with densely packed words. It was a detailed war plan. Amazing. Dongbua Shui Ying's eyes lit up the moment he saw it. Chapter 366. Dongbua Shuiying looked at the detailed battle plan and could not help but nod. His two senior apprentice brothers had made ample preparations for attack, defense, and retreat. Although you have made ample preparations, the Great Demon God is a Stage 2 Great Demon God. The Sorcerer God is also a material plane lord. Their wealth is probably not any less than ours. The thick-robed youth, goodbye, continued. Furthermore, they can choose whatever weapons they want in the deity world. I dare not say that you will definitely win this war. I only say that there is a chance of victory. I understand. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. If we can destroy the spatial tunnel, that would be for the best. If we fail, we will immediately retreat to the infernal world. With our arrangements, the infernal world will definitely be incomparably stable. They will not be able to break through. You Xia people can continue living in the infernal world. As for you, return to Crimson Rock Mountain to cultivate. Try your best to reach the peak of the deity realm within 10,000 years and refine the realm core. If you fail to refine it, you will either stay in Crimson Rock Mountain forever or go to the deity world. You will never be able to return to the Xia people's world. The Xia people's world is already very lucky to have given birth to a genius like you. Furthermore, they will live in the infernal world in the future. It is likely that they will never be able to give birth to another genius. They might not even have the chance to become a deity, because they will be trapped in the infernal world forever. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. He understood. If they were defeated, they could only defend. Their only chance at survival was to refine the realm core. Refining the realm core within 10,000 years is very difficult. The scarlet-cloaked youth, He Fei Yun, said, one's realm must be extremely high, at the peak of the deity realm, or even close to the world deity level. Only then can one have a chance of refining the realm core. Thus, material plane lords are extremely rare. Although your talent is not bad, it is hard to say whether you will be able to refine the realm core within 10,000 years. I understand. Thus, it is best if we can win this war and destroy the spatial tunnel. Dongbua Shuiying smiled faintly. He could not help but say, I've already grasped the basics of the great chaotic true force. Even if I continue to cultivate, it will be very difficult for me to improve much. Why wait for the great demon god to start the war? I can take the initiative to attack now. Break through the ocean of trees world and destroy that fortress, Dongbua Shuiying said. Two senior brothers, I wonder if this idea of mine will work? Within the fortress of the oceanic forest world, it was probably the avatars of the sorcerer god and the great demon god. It was likely that they also had some facilities for temporary spatial passages. As long as it was destroyed, that would be a victory. Don't even think about it. The thick-robed youth shook his head. As long as we reinforce the infernal world, they won't be able to break through. By the same logic, you won't be able to break through that world of trees either. The scarlet-caped youth, He Fei Yun, explained, that's because the entire forest ocean world has definitely been completely refined by the spatial artifact as well. It's like it's one with the castle. Furthermore, the oceanic forest world is a vassal of the Xia people's world. If you attack the oceanic forest world, the deity artifact will disperse and weaken the might of the attack, or even disperse it to the rest of the Xia people's world. Unless you can directly destroy the deity artifact, or destroy a mortal world, you won't be able to do anything to the fortress. AI. Dongbua Shuiying shook his head. He knew it wouldn't be so simple. Then, can the Xia people nurture a deity avatar and invite you two world deity senior brothers to descend and help us in the war? Dongbua Shuiying could not help but ask. If we could descend, we would be very willing. After all, we've been cooped up here for far too long. The thick-robed youth shook his head. However, to nurture a deity avatar suitable for me, I would need to slowly nurture it in the Xia people's world. It must be a fleshly body of a native of the Xia people. Only then would I be able to descend. No matter how fast the nurturing process is, it would still take at least 100 years. I don't think there's enough time. Dongbua Shui, and he shook his head. Attack the oceanic forest world? No hope. Their own side could create a deity avatar. It will be too late. I've heard that there's an avatar technique. Dongbua Shui Ying asked. But I've been on Crimson Dust Island for so long, and I've even become an inner disciple. Yet I've never discovered that there's an avatar technique. Avatar techniques were something that the temporal temple had told him. There is. The thick-robed youth nodded. Can I cultivate it? That way, I'll have both a true body and an avatar in battle. That way, my side's combat power will also increase, Dongbua Shui Ying hurriedly asked. Teacher has long since set down a rule that any disciple of my Crimson Rock Mountain who has yet to comprehend a Grade 1 true meaning or become a world deity is forbidden from cultivating avatar techniques, the thick-robed youth said. Dongbua Shui Ying was startled. Why? Because an avatar technique requires you to split your soul into two, the scarlet-cloaked youth explained. The origin of one's soul is incomparably important. Even the slightest loss of one's origin would be unbearable. As for an avatar technique, it would result in the loss of half of one's origin. This would cause your comprehension ability and innate talent to drop. You can clearly feel that your cultivation speed will not be as fast as before. Your talent is high enough, and you have a high chance of refining the realm core within 10,000 years. However, the moment your soul is split into two, your combat power will increase, but your cultivation speed will be greatly reduced. The possibility of refining the realm core will also be greatly reduced. Dongbua Shui Ying felt helpless. He had thought of a way to increase his side's chances of victory, but none of them worked. It was no wonder that his two senior apprentice brothers had never mentioned it before. In the following years, Dongbua Shui Ying continued his cultivation on Crimson Dust Island, working hard to raise his realm in hopes of reaching the deity heart realm. At the same time, he was pondering over his secret skill. As for his wife, Jing, her avatar would come to Crimson Rock Mountain once a year to replenish her magic energy. When she returned, she would bring back a large number of treasures to stabilize the infernal world. She wanted to stabilize the infernal world so that the sorcerer god and the great demon god would not be able to break through it. After all, if they were defeated in the future, the Xia people would have to defend the infernal world. Year after year passed. Dongbua Shui Ying had already been on Crimson Dust Island for 15 years. On Crimson Dust Island, Dongbua Shui Ying and his wife, Jing were sending off the Mishan Master and Persei. The 20 years are about to end. The sorcerer god and the great demon god might start a war at any time. It's about time for us to leave. Persei looked at Dongbua Shui Ying. I have nothing to worry about anymore. Dongbua, the Xia people's crisis is about to arrive. You have to be careful. If you really can't do it, you have to protect your own life. You might even choose to ascend to the deity world. When you become an almighty expert of the deity world, even if you die, you will be able to revive from the river of time. Therefore, no matter what happens, you must not give up. You have to stay alive. I understand. Thank you. Dongbua Shui Ying smiled. Rest assured, the Xia people will definitely emerge victorious in the end. All right, my Flying Sword Villa is located in the territory governed by the Bloodshed God Palace. It's under the jurisdiction of the Heavenly Star Mansion. It's located on the Scarlet God Planet of the Harmonious Water Starfield. If you have the chance in the future, you can come and find me. Persei smiled. Definitely. Dongbua Shui Ying nodded. I've heard that in the deity world, the Bloodshed God Palace, the Myriad God Palace, and the Temporal Island are the three most powerful forces. I reckon that I'll have the chance to enter the territory of the Bloodshed God Palace. The Mishan Master smiled. Dongbua Shui Ying will bid farewell here. I hope the Xia people will emerge victorious. However, no matter what, don't give up easily. As long as you're alive, you'll have a chance. The two of you, can't you say anything nice? Rest assured, the Xia people will definitely emerge victorious. Dongbua Shui Ying laughed. Sister-in-law, take good care of Dongbua. We'll meet again in the deity world in the future, Persei said to Jing Qiu. Amen. Big brother Persei, don't worry, Jing Qiu said. Senior Crimson Rock, please send us off. The Maishan Master and Persei exchanged a glance before saying in unison, Wang. A ripple enveloped the two of them. Both of them smiled as they looked at Dongbua Shui Ying and his wife. Shua. The two of them disappeared. Dongbua Shui Ying looked at them as they left. It had been close to 20 years since Persei and the rest descended. The sorcerer god and the great demon god were about to start a war soon. Perhaps it might start within 3 to 5 months. Snow Eagle, don't worry. The infernal realm is much more stable than before. No matter what, defending the infernal realm won't be a problem for you. You've already contributed greatly to the Xia people. Jing Qiu could feel Dongbua Shui Ying's thoughts as she consoled him. Dongbua Shui Ying looked at his wife and smiled. In his heart, he was filled with anticipation. Hopefully, I'll be able to reach the deity heart realm and the strength of the blood-creeping flower will grow stronger. If that's the case, the Xia people will have a higher chance of victory. The longer the war dragged on, the more advantageous it would be for his side. However, the sorcerer god and the great demon god were also afraid that things might change if they delayed. The moment they were ready, they would immediately start the war. Chapter 367. In the blink of an eye, it had been 23 years since Dongbua Shui Ying entered Crimson Rock Mountain. The entire Xia people's world was filled with turbulent undercurrents. The Xia people were on high alert because war could break out any day. Forest Ocean World. The hemispherical fortress stood there. The Xia people had guessed that the sorcerer god and the great demon god had hidden some of their tricks here, but they could do nothing about it. What do you think? Did that greedy Wahai family sign the oath? The phantom head of the great demon god asked. Sign the oath. The golden-robed sorcerer god gritted his teeth and said, This Wahai clan is really taking advantage of the situation. Not only did we give them the faith of this mortal world, they actually dared to ask for so many benefits. The eyes of the great demon god's illusory skull were faintly filled with flames. He said in a low voice, The Wahai family is one of the top families in the Wave Feather Empire. The temple of the earth god of the Xia people's world has always belonged to them, and their faith is also enjoyed by their family. Back then, when I fought with that old fellow from the Wahai family, I thought that he was just a stage 2 world deity and that I could beat him. Who would have thought that when our deity avatars fought, I would discover that he was already half a step into the stage 3 world deity realm. In that battle, I lost, and he won. Not long after, I heard that he became a stage 3 world deity. That old fellow is very cunning. At this crucial moment, how could he not offer a high price? In the deity world, other than the largest bloodshed god palace, the Temporal Island, and the Myriad god palace, there were a few other deity world empires with relatively weaker foundations. The Terran Shrine was backed by the deity realm's Wave Feather Empire. We've made ample preparations this time. Great demon god, you might not be able to defeat that old man, but you should be able to hold him off for a short period of time. As long as the spatial passageway is established, my army from the other mortal world will be able to kill their way in. At that time, even if he had 3 or 5 avatars, it would still be useless, let alone one. The golden-robed man sneered. I'm just afraid that at the most critical moment of building the tunnel, that old man's avatar will be able to travel through the space-time tunnel and arrive instantly. Who knows, he might destroy it. The great demon god said, although he was confident that he could hold them off for a while. But confidence did not mean absolute. After all, one of them was in the distant dark abyss, while the other was in the divine world. It had been too long since they had last fought. Although the great demon god had made some progress, he was more confident, but his opponent was still a stage 3 world deity. Forget it. Giving him benefits is within the range of what we can tolerate. The Golden Robe Man said, The Wahai clan is also afraid that we will shed all pretense of cordiality. Their god doppelgangers are unable to successfully destroy it. In the end, they will not be able to obtain anything. Even the faith of the Xia people's world will be gone. Many benefits will only be given after the war. The great demon god's head continued. The temple of the earth gods Wahai clan has been dealt with. I wonder if there are any other god clones hiding in the Xia people's world. The last time I asked the temple, I only knew that the temple of the earth god had a god avatar. The other powers didn't have one. The golden-robed man said, since the last time I asked, it hasn't been that fast to nurture a divine avatar's fleshly body. Let's hope that nothing unexpected happens. The great demon god's head said, as long as the otherworld deities don't interfere, this war will be very easy for us. As for the Xia people, a small Dongbua Shuang might be a little troublesome. However, his realm is still lower than ours. Once we establish the passageway, he will be able to sense it. By the time he rushes over, our army will have already passed through the passageway. Unless Dongbua Shuang becomes a god, there is nothing to worry about. The golden-robed man said indifferently, 23 years ago, he was only at the peak of stage 2. How could he become a god so quickly? Impossible. This fleshly body of mine needs another 2 years before it succeeds. Sorcerer God, shouldn't we get rid of the Xia people first? The great demon god's head said, after all, when the war breaks out, it will be more troublesome to act. They are currently within the Xia capital. The transcendence we have planted within the Xia people can also act. I have already prepared it. The golden-robed man said indifferently, I have obtained many ingredients from the temporal temple and painstakingly concocted a hexing poison. It has long been brought into the Xia capital by the transcendence of my beast clan. As long as I give the order, the hexing poison will be released. The qi and magic power of the transcendence within the entire Xia capital will be infiltrated. They will no longer be able to use qi and magic power. As for the mortals, they will immediately die under the effects of this hexing poison. Without qi and magic power, they can still mobilize the might of the heaven and earth. However, they will not be able to activate the deity equipment. The Infernal Palace's spatial deity equipment will also not be able to activate it. It will be easy to break through. The golden-robed man was incomparably confident. Amazing. As expected of the sorcerer god, the great demon god smiled. Hexing poison. It was originally a very sinister type. Cultivators who specialized in hexing poison were feared by others. However, would the ancestors of the Xia people have thought of this? Would they have taken precautions? The great demon god asked, don't worry, I am the lord of a material world. When it comes to scheming, how can I be inferior to a few deities? The sorcerer god sneered, I have never treated the Xia people as my opponents. I can settle them in 2 or 3 moves. Only that Dongbua Shuang might be a little troublesome. However, it is just a little troublesome. You just have to watch the show. All right, watch the show. The head of the great demon god revealed a smile. Infernal world, Xia capital. The population of the Xia capital was extremely high. Even the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world and other spaces had many Xia people. As for the transcendents, most of them lived within the Infernal Palace. An extremely small number of transcendents were scattered within their own residences. In a quiet room within a courtyard of the Infernal Palace, an ordinary sky realm transcendent mage was conducting an experiment. There was a pile of bottles and jars. This transcendent mage continued to experiment. Suddenly, he casually took out a seemingly ordinary black bottle from the pile of bottles and jars. He uncorked the bottle and began to pour the contents into the crystal jade plate in front of him. Some green liquid poured out of the black bottle, and a soundless and odorless aura began to spread. As soon as the aura entered the extraordinary mage's body, it seeped into her magical power spring. Instantly, her magical power was affected, and she could no longer use it. However, the transcendent mage remained calm and unmoved. He knew very well this was voodoo. It was the great sorcerer god who had asked him to bring him in. He was a transcendent mage who was originally a magical beast. However, Great Elder Ao Lan had created his human body and allowed him to infiltrate the Xia people. He had even cultivated to become a transcendent. Naturally, he lived as an ordinary sky realm transcendent mage. This time, a large number of transcendents had gathered in the Xia capital. Naturally, he heard the order and came to the Xia capital to live in the infernal palace. Who? A soundless and odorless aura was released, quickly exiting the room and spreading outwards. Once a transcendent was poisoned by this voodoo poison, they would not be able to use their battle energy or magic power. Transcendent bodies could still withstand it, but mortals would definitely die. The transcendent mage continued to mix, but the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He looked forward to it, looking forward to the extinction of the human race. The Beast clan conquering the entire Xia people's world. He had infiltrated the Xia people's world for a long time, waiting for this day. Chapter 368. The space around the courtyard suddenly froze. The gas that was about to disperse out of the meditation room also froze, no longer able to move. The expression of the transcendent mage in the meditation room changed. He felt the change in the surrounding space. Holding the black bottle in his hand, he pushed open the stone door of the meditation room and rushed out. So. In the distance, several figures broke through the air and flew over. Leading them was the doppelganger of Palace Lord Chun. "Stop!" Palace Lord Chun roared. The transcendent mage who had just rushed out of the meditation room had a sinister expression. He fiercely threw the black bottle in his hand, but the moment he threw it, it froze in mid-air. Bang! A huge palm descended from the sky, directly smashing onto the transcendent mage's body. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. "Mage Jiang Shui, I didn't expect you to be a traitor." Palace Lord Chun and the other four figures stopped in midair. Palace Lord Chun coldly stared at the transcendent mage. "Do you think this voodoo poison can harm our Xia people?" "Traitor? I'm not a traitor." The transcendent mage crawled up from the ground with a sinister expression. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he growled, "I was originally from the Beast clan. You Xia people and I were born enemies. Killing you is what I should do. Working for you is betraying my clan. It's a pity I didn't succeed. Take him away." Palace Lord Chun ordered. Ha. You want to pry out some secrets from me? Dream on." The transcendent mage growled. His body suddenly warped and expanded, turning into a huge dark blue bird. The bird had sharp claws and glossy dark blue feathers. It let out a low cry. "I'm a beast. How many years has it been since I dared to reveal my beast form? But now I have nothing to fear." Just as he finished speaking, Peng, the dark blue bird, suddenly exploded. Palace Lord Chun and the other four figures coldly looked down from midair. Beast clan? He didn't say anything. There were two types of spies and traitors among the Xia people. One was from the demonic faction, and the other was from the Beast clan. In any case, the members of the demonic faction were all humans. It was fine if the Beast clan didn't make a move, but if they did, they would be ruthless. Within the oceanic forest world, I've said it before, the ancestors of the Xia people must have anticipated your voodoo methods. They must have been on guard. The head of the great demon god revealed a smile. As long as space is frozen, your voodoo poison will not be able to spread, and your techniques will be useless. However, they are really amazing. They were able to detect the voodoo poison as soon as it was spread. They were really prepared for it. On guard? The golden-robed sorcerer god sneered. I've said before, when it comes to scheming, do you think I can't beat them? Other than the voodoo poison, I've also prepared a great gift for them. A great gift? The great demon god's head was surprised. A gift worth 100,000 divine gems. The golden-robed sorcerer god sneered. I obviously spent 1,000 divine gems to buy this thing, but the temporal temple charged me 100,000 divine gems to transport it. How ruthless. Originally, I didn't intend to use it, but since the voodoo poison is useless, I can only use the hard method. I don't believe that their infernal palace can suppress this treasure. This is much more expensive than their entire infernal palace. What treasure? The head of the great demon god asked. Flame god, the demon-destroying great flame god. The golden-robed sorcerer god sneered. The great demon god's head revealed a look of shock. Flame god, this was a weapon researched by the mages. It was indeed a terrifying weapon. Once it exploded, it would destroy both friend and foe alike. In the deity world, there were many cultivators who spent their entire lives researching Flame God, creating increasingly stronger and more bizarre versions of Flame God. After all, there were times when one's realm could not be increased. At such times, one could rely on external forces to increase one's deterrence. Voodoo, medicine, insects, weapons of war, and so on. These were all unorthodox Taoists. Just like in the deity world, there were existences who cultivated the Tao of insects that were comparable to the almighty existences of the deity world. However, because he was weak, he had lived for too long, and he had gone mad and ended up dead. The demon-destroying great flame god is comparable to the full-powered attack of a peak deity. The head of the great demon god exclaimed, once it explodes within the Xia capital, even if the infernal palace's deity equipment can sense it, it will be helpless. Under its might, I'm afraid that most of the mortals and transcendents in the Xia capital will die. The voodoo poison is soft, but the flame god is hard. Let's see how they can block it. The golden-robed sorcerer god sneered. They should be satisfied with sending them to their deaths with 100,000 deity crystals. For the sake of victory, the sorcerer god was very willing. Within the Xia capital, in midair outside the infernal palace, a female transcendent was flying past. The number of beast clans that had infiltrated the Xia people could be counted on one's fingers, but she was one of them. Are we going to use it? This female transcendent was chosen to carry the flame god. She was also willing to use it. She was not afraid of death. Humans of the Xia people die. Once you are exterminated, our beast clans will flourish. We will no longer have to hide and be hunted by you. The female transcendent waved her hand. Instantly, a silver ball appeared in midair, following which a terrifying power erupted, and the silver ball immediately turned dark red. Boom! An unimaginably terrifying power suddenly erupted. Countless red lights and lightning bolts abruptly spread out in all directions. The female transcendent who was hiding nearby was instantly annihilated. Although this peak deity's power was spread out in all directions, it was still terrifyingly strong. The surrounding space shattered, and the ground of the infernal palace's plaza began to disintegrate into nothingness. Some of the transcendents who were flying in the distance, as well as the citizens of the Xia capital, looked at the huge ball of light in midair. All of them revealed looks of fear. Whoa! All of a sudden, a surging power appeared out of thin air, enveloping the huge ball of light from all directions. Although the ball of light was exploding, its power was actually suppressed to a radius of tens of meters. The power of a peak deity's attack was actually completely enveloped by this formless power. It seemed as though it was constantly being diverted. In less than a second, the formless power abruptly closed up, and the ball of light was finally destroyed. Deep within the infernal palace, in a secret space, the black-robed palace Lord Shun was currently controlling the situation. Discovered Flame God, Devil Destroyer Grade Flame God. Control successful. The power has been transferred to the Xia people's world. Transfer complete. The black-robed palace head, Chen, could not help but sigh in surprise when he heard the voice transmitted over by the treasure spirit. The current infernal palace was still the same as it was in the past, but in reality, the fouling guns had long since been replaced with cannons. All of this had been sent over by Ying through Jing Qiu's hands. Ever since he became an honorary disciple, Ying had sent over treasures to reinforce the infernal realm. After becoming an inner disciple, he discussed with his two senior brothers and spent another 200,000 deity crystals to buy treasures to reinforce the infernal realm once more. On Crimson Dust Island. Voodoo, Devil Destroyer Grade Flame God. Dongbo Ying had also received the news. Yes. Jing Qiu revealed an anxious look. The sorcerer god and the others have started to act. The ones who did it are two spies from the beast race who infiltrated our Xia people. They haven't even started to stabilize the spatial passageway, and they're already attacking our Xia people. Dongboi Shuang frowned. He was not worried about the safety of the infernal realm at all. After the reinforcement, in the words of his two senior brothers, the infernal realm was already extremely stable. Even if the sorcerer god and the others used countless weapons to control the Xia people's world, they would not be able to break into the infernal realm, regardless of whether it was soft or hard tactics. The infernal realm today was already extremely stable. They probably want to get rid of our Xia people first, Jing Qiu said. Dongboi Shuang said coldly, first the voodoo poison, then the devil destroyer grade flame god. They really think too highly of our Xia people. How shameful. I actually fell asleep in front of my computer when I was feeling sleepy. I only finished writing now. Star. Chapter 369. Snow Eagle. What should we do? Asked Jing Qiu anxiously. What else can we do? Dongboi Shuang shook his head. If there was a way, I would have done it long ago. They have already refined the oceanic forest world, and their operations are extremely stable. All I can do is prepare. The more preparations I make, the better. There is no other way. They have the initiative, and I can only wait. However, the longer we drag this out, the more advantageous it will be for us. Jing Qiu nodded. Although they had been tricked, first by the voodoo poison, then by the demon destroyer grade blazing lightning, they had wanted to destroy the Xia people. However, they had no way of retaliating. The sorcerer god and the great demon god were both ruthless. Their subordinates were forbidden from approaching the key areas of the oceanic forest world fortress. In reality, the Xia people did not have any spies within the beast race. Because of the difference in race, it was difficult to plant spies. If not for Elder Ao Land's true meaning of life, the beast race would not have been able to infiltrate the Xia people. The transcendents of the Xia people in the Xia capital were all very excited. The explosion had occurred in midair outside the Infernal Palace, and many had seen it. That terrifying explosion had been easily suppressed and extinguished. This made them even more confident. The foundation of the Xia people is indeed extraordinary. The ancestors of the Xia people have indeed made many preparations. They were all very happy. Jing Qiu's avatar and Palace Lord Chun, who knew the truth, did not say anything. Dongboi Shuang's matter was still a secret. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. Dongboi Shuang had been in Crimson Rock Mountain for 25 years, and on Crimson Dust Island for more than 20 years. Goo Goo Goo, a blood-colored lake in the fortress, had gradually dried up, leaving only a small amount of blood-colored liquid that was bubbling. An 8-meter-tall, giant humanoid body lay in the middle of the lake with a vigorous aura. Its breathing was deep and powerful, and its chest was also rising and falling slightly. The giant phantom of the demon god skull that appeared beside the lake let out a laugh. Ha ha, it's finally done. This body has been nurtured. I've been waiting for you. The golden-robed phantom beside him said, Great demon god, since your fleshly body has recovered, we can begin the plan. Begin descending. The phantom head of the great demon god said in a low voice. Boom! A vortex began to appear above the humanoid body, vaguely connected to the distant and ancient dark abyss. The dark abyss was an existence that stood on equal footing with the divine realm. Countless demons and demon gods lived there, and there were many that were even more powerful than the great demon god. If one were to say that the descent of an ordinary demon god's heart world projection would cause a huge commotion, the descent of the great demon god's divine avatar would cause a very small commotion, and its power would be completely controlled so that it wouldn't leak out at will. This was the power of control. Wah! An indistinct blood-red phantom flew out from the vortex, instantly drilling into the humanoid body. The humanoid body slowly opened its eyes, which were filled with blood-red flames. Following that, it floated up into the air, and its body began to change. Two very long, curved horns grew out of its head, and its face began to become thinner. The lines of the scales on its body also began to change. When the transformation was complete, this terrifying, demonic body of it stood in midair, naturally emitting a sort of artistic beauty. Or perhaps it was a kind of combat beauty that conformed to the laws of the heavens and earth. Bang! Following that, blood-red flames began to rise from every part of its body. The flames enveloped every part of its body. As a result, his entire body couldn't be seen clearly. He could only see a humanoid figure of flames standing in midair before slowly descending to the ground. Ooh, breathing in the material world, how nostalgic. The flaming figure said. It casually waved its arm and could feel an inexhaustible amount of laws surrounding it, binding it, and even faintly repelling it. As long as it willed it, it could follow this repelling force and leave this mortal world with a single thought. The material world really doesn't welcome me. Laws are binding everywhere. The flaming figure gritted its teeth. Fortunately, this fleshly body is that of a native of this world. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to descend here. Even if I wanted to upgrade this body, I would be suppressed. Descending into a deity avatar was just that frustrating. It was completely suppressed. Its fleshly body was suppressed, its strength was suppressed, and its speed was suppressed. However, it's enough. Even with this bit of strength at the limit of a demigod, with my current realm, killing some newly ascended deities is still an easy task, the great demon god's avatar muttered. I can easily kill a newly ascended deity. Great demon god, you are much stronger than me. Another figure walked in. It was a golden-robed man with a sinister look in his eyes. This was the avatar of the sorcerer god. Although his talent was high, it was far from being comparable to a grade 1 true, meaning transcendent. A grade 1 true, meaning transcendent, could condense a grade 1 deity heart within 3,000 years. The sorcerer god, on the other hand, had cultivated for an extremely long period of time before finally breaking through to the world deity realm. That's right. As long as one grasped a grade 1 deity heart and accumulated enough deity energy, one could cultivate all the way to the stage 1 world deity realm. The great demon god had cultivated for an even longer period than the sorcerer god. He was an ancient stage 2 world deity. This time, it should be quite easy. The great demon god's avatar said, however, my only worry is Dongbua Shuang. When I asked the temporal temple, they asked for a total of 500,000 deity crystals, but they only gave me one answer. Dongbua Shuang is still alive. He's still alive within Crimson Rock Mountain. As for information on his combat power, there was no information at all. If the temporal temple had detailed information on Dongbua Ying's combat power, this information would be worth more than 500,000 deity crystals, the sorcerer god's avatar said. They too wanted to know the details of the Xia people's combat power. However, this information was even more valuable. The two of them did not buy it. From their point of view, other than Dongbua Ying, the Xia people were not worth caring about. As for Dongbua Ying, he had always stayed within Crimson Rock Mountain. The temporal temple only knew that he was alive. As for his combat power, it was a mystery. Relax. How long has Dongbua Ying been cultivating? The sorcerer god's avatar sneered. We won't be relying on our avatars to fight him. We have plenty of war weapons. Amen. The great demon god's avatar was also very confident. Previously, they were worried about that person from the temple of the earth god. They were also worried that the spatial passageway would be destroyed when they were just starting to build it. After all, the other party was a stage 3 world deity with an extremely high realm and could arrive at the spatial passageway in an instant. But as long as the construction was successful, they would be able to send a large number of war weapons into the Xia people's world. Let's go. The sorcerer god said, let's go. The great demon god nodded. I'll control the battleship. The two of them did not bring any subordinates. After all, the construction of the spatial channel had to be kept secret. Moreover, subordinates? As long as the spatial channel was built, there would be an endless stream of subordinates arriving. Who? Soon, a small crimson battleship, merely 100 meters long, was being controlled by the great demon god's avatar. Noiselessly, it left the fortress. Even the naked eye could not detect it. It left the oceanic forest world and entered the spatial layer. Noiselessly, it flew through the spatial layer. Soon, it passed through the membrane and arrived at the Xia people's world. This was a vast desert. This was the place chosen by the great demon god and the sorcerer god. This place was desolate and uninhabited. The battleship was still flying, but it was impossible for the naked eye to detect it. Begin preparations. Activate. Everything happened in the void. The great demon god and the sorcerer god moved together. In a matter of seconds, they had set up the temporary equipment and activated it. A wave of terrifying power suddenly erupted. It could no longer be concealed. A dazzling gray pillar of light shot into the sky. The sky was torn open, revealing a hideous and pitch-black spatial channel. This spatial channel not only tore through the inner membrane, but also pierced through the outer membrane of the Xia people's world. It connected to another mortal world far away. This huge commotion was instantly discovered by the Xia people. The Xia people had long been on high alert. It was just that the great demon god's cultivation level was too high, so the Xia people had not discovered him. What huge commotion! It's a spatial fluctuation. The outer membrane has been pierced through. The dirty old man on the fishing boat, Chao Qing, stood up abruptly. He took out his communication wristband from his storage treasure and contacted the Xia people for the first time since leaving Crimson Rock Mountain. Palace Lord Shun, I am Chao Qing. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Chapter 370. Infernal Realm, Xia Capital. Dong, dong, dong. The deep sound of the drum reverberated throughout the entire Xia capital and even further away. Countless people in the Xia capital listened attentively. 3 beats, 4 beats, 5 beats, a total of 9 heavy beats. Everyone understood what had happened. In the history of the Xia people, when the drum of the Infernal Palace was sounded, 9 beats would only mean one thing. A calamity was about to descend. In the history of the Xia people, they had been forced to retreat to the infernal realm time and time again. Countless people in the mortal world outside had been slaughtered and eaten, and now, such a calamity was about to descend once again. And according to some of the previous rumors, the severity of this calamity was far greater than the past. Has the war begun? Dongbua Qing Shi, who was in the midst of researching spell models, looked up anxiously. But why hasn't my brother returned yet? The matter of Dongbua Shui entering the Crimson Rock Mountain was kept from his younger brother and parents. Afterwards, the entire Xia people began to migrate. Qing Shi, Dongbua Lai, and his wife naturally asked about Dongbua Shuang. Jing Qiu only said that Snow Eagle had gone to a very important place to fight for his life. If he succeeded, he would be able to get rid of the poison and return. The war has begun. In another part of the mansion, Dongbua Lai, Mo Yangyu, and Zhong Ling, who were originally sitting together and chatting, suddenly stood up, their faces filled with shock. The war has already begun. Where's Snow Eagle? Snow Eagle hasn't returned yet. The war has begun, but we don't even have the qualifications to intervene. Damn it. The Transcendents were incomparably anxious. Pu Yangbo, Shui Yi, Gong Liang Yuan, and the rest were all extremely nervous. They began to communicate with each other and met up in groups of 2s and 3s. A Dingzhou battleship floated above the Infernal Palace. Palace Lord Shun began to issue orders through his communication wristband. All demigods of the Xia people, heed my command. To prevent spies, all demigods are to enter the different cabins of the Dingzhou battleship. Okay, let's go. Dressed in a long robe, Mountain Lord He's eyes were as calm as the sea. With a single leap, he soared into the sky and flew towards Dingzhou's battleship. After all these years of cultivation, especially with the help of the many spirit fruits and treasures Dongbua, Shui, Ying had sent over from Crimson Dust Island. Mountain Lord He's strength had taken another step forward. Originally, he had a grade 4 deity heart, but now it had evolved into a grade 3 deity heart. He still maintained his position as the number 1 demigod on the surface. However, he was still unable to open his divine sea. Whoosh! Qiu Qi Bai also soared into the sky. He was currently at the peak of the Stage 3 realm in his grade 3 true meaning, and his combat power was second only to Mountain Lord He. Before Mountain Lord He grasped a grade 3 deity heart, Qiu Qi Bai was once ranked first in the demigod list for a short period of time. Now he was ranked second. We must win this battle. Si Kong Yang wore the 9 Dragons fire deity armor, and his battle intent surged. He also flew out from a courtyard in the Infernal Palace and flew towards Ding Jiu's battleship. War. Grand Elder Palace Head, City Lady Bu, the other demigods, and even the newly promoted demigod Yuan Qing all flew towards Ding Jiu's battleship. On the contrary, Jing Qiu, who had also become a demigod, did not appear. Ka. There were many small cabins within Ding Jiu's battleship. In order to prevent spies from hiding within, everyone was temporarily separated. In fact, it was almost certain that there would be spies. Because other than Shi Yun, no other demigod spies from the demonic faction had been discovered. Who? This Ding Jiu's battleship rapidly broke through the skies and left. Under the gazes of the countless people in the Xia capital and the Transcendence, Ding Jiu's battleship rapidly left the infernal realm. In the distant, vast, and mysterious deity world, there was a planet that was sealed by layers of arrays. Countless precious flowers and plants grew on the planet, as well as some rare insects and beasts. A group of peak deity experts were stationed here for a long period of time to conduct research. This azure dark flower is a variant. Compared to the original, the longer it grows, the greater the difference. I just don't know what its medicinal properties are. An amiable old man with 2 tufts of beard was currently looking at an enormous plant with a diameter of more than 100 meters, the azure dark flower. This plant only had a single flower bud, and it was a strange flower that was suffused with a deep azure color. Furthermore, every single petal had an ugly diagram on it. Brother Purple Thunder, under the acceleration of time, this azure dark flower will mature in another 3 years. At that time, we can carefully study it. A tall and skinny man beside him laughed. If we succeed, the 2 of us will have contributed greatly. At the very least, we'll be able to rise by a rank. What's the point of thinking so much? Let's peacefully study it. The amiable old man laughed. The 2 of them were merely pharmacists at the bottom of the Bloodshed God Palace's enormous organization. However, being able to become a part of the Bloodshed God Palace was enough to make countless deities envious. Even peak deities who could enter the Bloodshed God Palace were few and far between. Suddenly, the amiable old man's expression changed. He turned to look in a certain direction, the direction of the material world. The war has begun. I've done everything I can. The descendants of the Xia people will have to depend on you. The Purple Thunder Emperor was ultimately not a world deity. Even if he joined the Bloodshed God Palace, he would only be at the bottom. The amount he could help the Xia people was limited. Come. Those who wish to join the Sky Sword sect, stand over here. The higher-ups of the Sky Sword sect are about to arrive. Don't offend or anger them. It'll be an injustice if you die here. A group of Transcendents were waiting in an empty space beneath the mountain. Who? In the distance, a large ship flew over. There was a group of experts on it, each of them giving off a grand aura. Even the weakest of them were deities. The Heavenly Sword sect was a top-notch sect that was quite famous in the surrounding dozen or so star fields. Every time, there were countless Transcendents that desired to enter the Heavenly Sword sect and were brought to the distant Heavenly Sword planet. It was just that the Sky Sword sect was very strict in accepting disciples. Usually, only those who had hopes of becoming a deity would be brought away. The large ship slowly descended. The one leading them was a white-robed, long-haired male. Behind him were two groups of subordinates. Elder High, there's a young fellow from my hometown. He's that purple-robed youth with a sword on his back. One of the subordinates transmitted to him. He had already given him some benefits before coming. Amen. Elder High nodded, looking at the group of young transcendents. He swept his gaze across them before releasing a terrifying pressure. Those who can remain standing have passed the initial selection. Hong Long Long, the powerful pressure caused the group of transcendents to feel incomparable terror. This caused the deities to sigh with envy. He was indeed an existence who had stepped into the peak of the deity realm. He was just a step away from becoming a world deity, yet his pressure was so terrifying. However, they were clear that this step from a deity to a world deity was akin to a chasm between heaven and earth. Other than the purple-robed youth with a sword on his back, who was receiving care from the shadows, the majority of the transcendents could not bear it and knelt down. The 125 transcendents standing here have passed the preliminary selection. The rest of you may leave. One of Elder Hai Yun's subordinates said loudly. Elder Yin Hai's expression suddenly changed. The people of Xia. Elder Yin Hai looked towards the direction of the material world. A long time ago, he was also a young and tender mortal. He grew up step by step until he became a deity. He left the mortal world and entered the deity world, cultivating all the way to his current level. He had always been worried about his hometown. Children, I've already done everything I could. Whether the Xia people live or die, it all depends on you. Elder Yin Hai silently said. Old 5, you'll be in charge of the next election. Elder Yin Hai ordered. Yes, master. Immediately, an early-stage deity disciple stood out. Within a battleship shuttling through the starry sky, a group of deities were gathered here. All of them were at the peak of the deity realm. They could be considered as an elite adventurer team. Among them was a dispirited man who was hugging a blade. The war has begun. The dispirited man looked towards the direction of the material world. That was his hometown. I still wanted to take the risk to obtain more treasures. Unfortunately, it's too late. He was one of the 3 surviving peak deities of the Xia people, the Scarlet Flame Monarch. The Scarlet Flame Monarch and the Scarlet Cloud Emperor were 2 of the most outstanding figures in the history of the Xia people. The 2 were like brothers. For example, the Infernal Palace was sent back by the Scarlet Cloud Emperor at all costs to establish the foundation of the Xia people. However, the Scarlet Cloud Emperor was already dead. One by one, the ancestors of the Xia people received the news. Some of them were even weaker, but they still cared about their hometown. Even so, there was a limit to what they could do. Crimson Rock Mountain, on Crimson Dust Island above the clouds. Master, there's a spatial ripple. A very powerful spatial ripple. The outer membrane of this mortal world has been penetrated. This was a message from the blood-creeping flower. Donghua Shui Ying had also given it a communication item. He was worried that the efficiency of the Xia people's detection abilities would be too low. The blood-creeping flower, on the other hand, had infiltrated the Xia people's world. It had long since reached the deity level, and its senses were much sharper. Donghua, the sorcerer god, and the great demon god have begun to establish a channel. The war has begun. Jing Xiu came to find Donghua Shui Ying a few seconds later. They're finally here. Donghua Shui Ying held Jing Xiu's hand and flew directly into the air above his courtyard. At the same time, he called out, Senior Crimson Rock, please send us out. Donghua, you must be careful in the war. Crimson Rock, Shi Wei, goodbye, and He Fei Yun all appeared by his side almost instantly. Be careful, the thick-robed goodbye said. If you can't hold on, then return to Crimson Rock Mountain. As long as you refine the realm core within 10,000 years of your lifespan, you will still win, the Scarlet Cloak youth said. All of them exhorted. Donghua is in a hurry. Cut the crap. Senior Crimson Rock waved his hand. Hua. Donghua Shui Ying and Jing Xiu disappeared at the same time. They had been teleported to the Xia people's world. End of chapter. The crucial battle had finally begun. Donghua Shui Ying had been in seclusion for so many years, all for the sake of this battle. MHM, MHM, MHM. I'll sort out the plot tonight. Tomorrow, I'll officially begin Chapter 13. Chapter 371. The Dingzhou battleship pierced through space at high speed, hurrying towards the western desert of the Xia people's world. Chao Qing was currently piloting the Dingzhou battleship. Vast amounts of deity power poured into the battleship, allowing the battleship to display its true power. In truth, even Chao Qing could only unleash a portion of the battleship's power. Because his cultivation level was not high enough, many of the battleship's arrays could not be fully activated. Fortunately, this was a low-grade battleship of the Dingzhou sequence. As an early deity, he could still barely control it. If it were a high-grade battleship, it would require over 100 peak deities or even an entire deity army to control it. Piercing through space. Ripples appeared in the air above the desert, and a pitch-black deity battleship appeared. That is, Palace Lord Chun, Mountain Lord He, Grand Elder Palace Head, City Lord Bu, Xiao Qi Bai, Si Kong Yang, and the rest had yet to recover from the shock of Chao Qing becoming a deity when they saw the scene in front of them. In the distance, a huge gray castle in the shape of a hexagram towered there. At the center of the castle was a conical roof, which emitted intense spatial ripples. Clearly, there was a stable spatial tunnel within it. So big, this gray castle covered an area of 10,000 li. What did 10,000 li mean? Ordinary mortals would not be able to see the end of it. Even the demigods of the Xia people felt that this huge castle covered half the world. The castle itself was over 1,000 li high and had long since pierced through the clouds. It was even more majestic than any mountain in the Xia people's world. The 1,000-meter-long Dingzhou battleship was like an earthworm compared to it. Look, the outer layer of the castle. Holes began to appear on the surface of the huge castle. Battleships began to fly out of the holes. Each battleship was dark green in color and was 1,000 meters long. There were complicated runes on the bodies of the ships. These were the characters of the deity realm, and when translated into the language of the Xia people, they read C9. C9? Palace Lord Qin's expression changed. This is Battleship C9? Battleship C9 was also a standard battleship of the God realm. However, compared to Dingzhou's warship, it was a level higher. One of them could buy hundreds of Dingzhou's warships. Rumble, above them, the illusions of the vast ocean appeared. Moreover, there were many illusions of the ocean. These illusions of the ocean even overlapped with each other. Opening the deity ocean, the demigods of the Xia people were alarmed. So many people are becoming gods at the same time. Inside this huge fortress, the golden-robed sorcerer god Avatar and the great demon god Avatar stood side by side, calmly watching everything unfold. The spatial passage has been established, and the fortress has been stabilized. The avatar of the sorcerer god revealed a smile. We've succeeded. Even if a god's avatar appears now, it won't be able to threaten us. Forget about a stage 3 world deity. Even if a powerful existence from the deity world were to personally descend a deity avatar, it would only have the power of a peak demigod. Don't even think about breaking through our fortress. Sorcerer God, don't be too arrogant. If a powerful existence really wanted to kill you, why would he need to descend a deity avatar? The great demon god teased. Ha ha ha. The sorcerer god laughed. How could I have the qualifications to provoke a powerful existence to deal with me? I was too happy just now, so I spoke casually. The great demon god laughed as well. His entire body was bathed in flames. Even when he laughed, one could only see the corners of his lips curling upwards. Once the spatial passage is stabilized, lower the fortress and protect the spatial passage. This is already considered a success, the golden-robed sorcerer god said. The next step is to completely transform the entire Xia people's world into a gigantic fortress. This will require some time. Amen, the great demon god nodded. You and I have prepared so many methods, but it seems like none of them will be of any use. They brought along a large number of demigods. There were even a few demigods who had reached the threshold of becoming gods. At this moment, they were all becoming gods. Great Sorcerer God, the first fortress has been stabilized. Great Sorcerer God, the second fortress has been stabilized. This gigantic fortress was in the shape of a hexagram. Other than the central fortress, there were 6 smaller fortresses at each corner. The main purpose of the fortress was to stabilize the spatial passage. Most importantly, the 6 corners were to support it. The Sorcerer God and the others had personally set up the main fortress at the first instance. There was no hurry to set up the second fortress. There's a spatial fluctuation. The great demon god looked into the distance. Other than this ding geo battleship, what else do the Xia people have? The Sorcerer God looked into the distance, puzzled. Could it be Dongbua Shuang? It should be him. This Dongbua Shuang has been hiding all this while. Now, he has finally shown himself. But even if he does show himself now, what's the use? The great demon god laughed coldly. They were too confident in themselves. The Ding Zhou battleship of the Xia people hovered in midair. At first glance, he could tell that there were a total of 18 ocean phantoms in the air. 18 of them had become gods at the same time. Since when had the Xia people experienced such a scene? The towering fortress that covered half the sky, the overlapping ocean shadows in the sky, the battleship C9 with an extraordinary aura. It was clear that with the establishment of the stable spatial passage, the Sorcerer God and the great demon god could easily bring a large amount of power into the world of the Xia people. Just a portion of their power was enough to stun the Xia people. Too powerful. How could they block it? Even if they had a few avatars, it would be useless. Boom! A pitch-black crack appeared in the space. Within the Ding Jiu battleship, Chao Qing, Mountain Lord He, Palace Lord Chun, Qi Qiu Bai, and the other transcendents of the Xia people, as well as the Sorcerer God, the great demon god, their subordinates who had just become gods, and even more demigod subordinates, were all looking at the pitch-black crack, only to see 2 figures flying out from the pitch-black crack, a white-robed youth and a light blue-robed woman. The 2 flew out side by side. Snow Eagle. Palace Lord Chun exclaimed in surprise. It's the Snow Eagle. Faction head Si Kongyang was also excited. He didn't die. He's back. Ha ha, it's the Snow Eagle. The Snow Eagle has returned from Crimson Rock Mountain. I knew he didn't die. Chao Qing was extremely carefree. Even an old man like me could survive. How could the Snow Eagle die? Qi Qiu Bai, Grand Elder Palace Head, City Lord Bu, Gong Yu, Yuan Qing, and the other demigods were all incomparably excited. It really is him. He actually came out. In the distant fortress, the Sorcerer God and the great demon god were still calm. They believed that victory was within their grasp. Tearing through the spatial passage, they arrived. With a single glance, Dongbua Shuang saw the towering fortress that covered half of the world. He also saw the ocean silhouettes that were gradually dissipating in the sky. It's just as I expected. The Lord of the material world is indeed not someone to be trifled with. Dongbua Shuang muttered softly. He then waved his hand. Boom! A huge object descended from the sky. It was a dazzling golden pyramid. The pyramid occupied an area of 10,000 kilometers, and its height was also 10,000 kilometers. It was majestic and majestic. In terms of height, it was far above the huge fortress. Dongbua Shuang and Jing Qiu instantly entered the huge pyramid. A misty light shone from the tip of the pyramid and spread out in all directions, forming a huge light barrier. Within the surrounding 10,000 kilometers, everything was covered by this misty light barrier. Naturally, it also covered the huge fortress in the distance. Within the surrounding 10,000 kilometers, all the heaven and earth energy was forcefully controlled. It was as though the surrounding 10,000 kilometers had become a small world. The core of this world was the pyramid. Star Pagoda. Within the Black Fortress, the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God stared with their eyes wide open. It was as though they had seen a ghost. It can forcefully control a part of the mortal world and form a world of its own. The Star Pagoda, and it's the legendary level 12 Star Pagoda. The gold-robed Sorcerer God said in disbelief. How is this possible? This star pagoda. It was an extremely common weapon of war in the deity world. The area illuminated by the star pagoda was their domain. As for the level 12 star pagoda, it had already surpassed the domain and could form a world of its own. Chapter 372. Level 12 Star Pagoda. The great demon god and the sorcerer god looked at each other. Their gazes passed through the outer walls of the fortress and looked at the Ding Jiu warship flying into the majestic Star Pagoda. The level 12 star tower costs more than 2 million deity crystals. How could it appear in the world of the Xia people? The golden-robed sorcerer god muttered. That's impossible. An ordinary stage, one-world deity would be lucky to take out 1 million deity crystals. He, the sorcerer god, was the lord of the material realm. He was not afraid of offending anyone or taking risks when he stayed in the material realm. Although he had not cultivated for a long time, his wealth was extraordinary and he could easily take out 10 million divine gems. However, this was also the accumulation of his many adventures. If he were to take out more than 2 million divinity crystals in one go to purchase a level 12 star tower, he would have to count his fingers carefully. If it wasn't necessary, neither he nor the great demon god would be willing to be so extravagant. The great demon god didn't have much more god crystals than the sorcerer god. Although he was more powerful, he lived in the dark abyss and had to be careful. He didn't dare to be as unafraid of death as the sorcerer god. Sorcerer god, I originally thought that since you were a territory lord of a material world, you wouldn't need to go through the temporal temple to bring treasures to the material world. The great demon god said, We have already made sufficient preparations, but who would have thought? If they were to transport a star pagoda through the temporal temple, the transportation cost would be at least 100 times. More than 200 million divine crystals? Not to mention them. Even stage 3 world deities would have their faces turn black. How could this be? The sorcerer god found it hard to accept. With a gloomy expression, he growled, As far as I know, becoming a guardian disciple is only worth 100,000 divine crystals. Even if he were to become an inner disciple, the most he could ask for was 1 million divinity crystals. Where did he get a tier 12 star pagoda? Could it be that he has become a personal disciple? But according to what I know, the rules of Crimson Rock Mountain state that in order to become a personal disciple, one must either be a transcendent with a grade 1 true meaning or a deity who grasped hold of a grade 1 deity heart within 10,000 years. How long had Dongbua Shuang been cultivating? Could he be a transcendent with a grade 1 true meaning? If it were a grade 1 true meaning transcendent, there would be no need for this battle. There will definitely be an Almighty who will come to take him as a disciple. If an Almighty intervenes, we can only bow our heads, said the sorcerer god. It's impossible for him to be a transcendent with a grade 1 true meaning. The great demon god nodded. A grade 1 true meaning transcendent? Crimson Rock Mountain might have fallen into the world of the Xia people, but just like the gods in the divine realm, they could still communicate with their hometowns in the material world. Within Crimson Rock Mountain, Shi Wei, Yifei Yun, Gobai, and the other world deities could also communicate with the deity world. They could easily send information to the deity world's great existences who were close to Crimson Rock Mountain. With the intervention of a powerful being, this war would naturally end. Almighty beings were high and mighty. There were billions of mortal worlds, and if there was no special reason, almighty beings would not lower themselves to interfere in the internal struggles of a mortal world. When it came to almighty beings, face was even more important. It seems that the world deities of Crimson Rock Mountain are helping Dongbua Shuang, said the sorcerer god. They feel that Dongbua Shuang is worth helping. But how many treasures does Crimson Rock Mountain have? The great demon god's entire body was covered in flames as he growled. Since it has fallen into the material world, the number of treasures inside will decrease. To be able to create a level 12 star pagoda is already quite amazing. Their guess was correct. Crimson Rock Mountain did not have an endless supply of treasures, but Crimson Rock Mountain had a world deity who specialized in refining goodbye. This level 12-star pagoda was refined by goodbye, and for the sake of this war, goodbye had even refined other treasures to aid Dongbua Shuang. With a world deity specially refined for this war, Dongbua Shuang would have a chance of victory. Wake up! The gold-robed sorcerer god's cold eyes pierced through the outer wall, looking at the distant star pagoda that was emitting endless light. Although I'm not willing to admit it, there are indeed many variables in this war. After establishing a stable passageway, the fortress descended. The two of them believed that victory. They could not imagine how the otherworld deities could fight against them. As for Dongbua Shuang, previously, they did not place him in their eyes. Even if Dongbua Shuang became an honorary disciple, so what? But a single level 12-star pagoda made them feel that things were not looking good. Then let's fight. The great demon god's voice boomed. We have a stable spatial passageway that allows us to choose various treasures from the deity world. I don't believe that we can't win against a mere Dongbua Shuang. The sorcerer god nodded. It would be a joke if we can't win against a little fellow. The star pagoda was majestic. In a spacious hall, Dongbua Shuang and Jingxiu were here. Beside them, many figures condensed. They were Chao Qing, Mountain Lord He, Palace Lord Chun, Qiu Qi Bai, Grand Elder Palace Head, City Lord Bu, Si Kong Yang, and a group of demigods. Their gazes landed on Dongbua Shuang, and they were all pleasantly surprised. Everyone, although my words are not pleasant to hear, I'm afraid that there are still spies from the demonic faction or the beast clan present here. Dongbua Shuang said, That's why everyone is temporarily in their respective regions. Right now, only a projection is here. Haha, that's what we should do. For the sake of war, we can't be too cautious. Palace Lord Chen looked at Dongbua Shuang with joy. I've long guessed that you, Snow Eagle, are still alive. However, no matter how I asked Jingxiu, she refused to tell me. Palace Lord Chen, I'm sorry. Jingxiu said. Hey, that's what you should do. Palace Lord Chen was very happy. Chao Qing smiled as he looked at Dongbua Shuang. Dongbua Shuang also looked at Chao Qing and smiled. Old Chao, I already knew that Old Chao had returned. However, I haven't had the chance to meet you. I also thought that I would be able to deal a heavy blow to them with the help of Ding Jiu's battleship. Who would have thought that the sorcerer god and the great demon god's strength would surpass my imagination? Chao Qing shook his head. This is no longer a simple battle between deity avatars. They have established a stable spatial passage that connects to another mortal world. Dongbua Shuang said, The sorcerer god can continuously send down treasures from the deity world without going through the temporal temple. This war is indeed very difficult. However, I made the first move and gained the upper hand by placing down this star pagoda, creating a world around it. Can we win? Palace Lord Chen asked. Instantly, everyone turned to look at Dongbua Shuang. We can give it a try. Dongbua Shuang said, If we can directly destroy that fortress, destroying the stable spatial passage. If we win, they will no longer have any hope of entering. If we lose, we can only retreat to the infernal world. I also have to return to the Crimson Rock Mountain to cultivate and refine the realm core within 10,000 years of my lifespan. If I can't refine it, our Xia people will never be able to make a comeback. Dongbua Shuang said, If they were defeated, the infernal world would be heavily surrounded. In the future, no transcendence from the Xia people's world would be able to enter the Crimson Rock Mountain. Let's give it a try. Faction head Si Kong Yang roared. Snow Eagle, has the poison been neutralized? Chi Bai asked. Dongbua Shuang laughed. Of course it's been neutralized. The sorcerer god and the great demon god's actions have exceeded our expectations. This time, it's all up to you. Chi Bai said. Don't worry, we still have the strength to fight. Dongbua Shuang had just finished speaking. Boom! Suddenly, there was a faint tremor outside. Dongbua Shuang and the rest looked outside. The walls of the hall immediately reflected the scene outside. They could clearly see a gigantic plant swaying wildly in the vast desert. Countless vines and bewitching red flowers swayed wantonly. This gigantic plant's height pierced through the layers of clouds and was comparable to the star pagoda. Countless vines permeated the vast desert. Every vine and flower of this gigantic plant was covered with a layer of black liquid. On the surface of the black liquid, there were even complicated deity runes. Dongbua Shui, Ying revealed a smile. That black liquid was a weapon specially made for plant life forms. It was extremely powerful and had cost Dongbua Shui Ying 300,000 deity crystals. Combined with the blood-creeping flower, it was like adding wings to a tiger. The blood-creeping flower was also the main combat force this time. Master, should we act? The blood-creeping flower's voice resounded in the sky. Shui man, don't be anxious. Dongbua Shui Ying spoke, his voice also resounding in the star pagoda. On the other side, inside the fort, great sorcerer god, 18 figures stood there and shouted respectfully, each emitting the aura of a deity. The sorcerer god and the great demon god calmly looked outside the fort and also saw the gigantic, swaying, blood-creeping flower. Blood-creeping flower, from its size, it should be a mid-deity. In the star pagoda, its strength can be increased by 50%. The golden-robed sorcerer god said, from its appearance, it seems to be some kind of special weapon. It should be able to increase its strength further, or it might even be able to approach the late deity realm. Let's try it first. The great demon god spoke. Chapter 373. The 18 of you, each pilot a battleship C9 and test out the blood-creeping flower, the gold-robed sorcerer god ordered. Yes, the 18 newly ascended gods respectfully accepted the order. As a world deity, the sorcerer god had quite a bit of power in the deity world. He easily found 18 demigod transcendents within his sphere of influence, who could break through to become deities at any time. These 18 transcendents were incomparably excited to serve the great sorcerer god. After all, even if they became gods, they would only be mediocre among the billions of gods in the god realm. However, if they made a great contribution, their status would be different. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Very soon, battleships C9 after battleship flew up from the massive black fortress. Each battleship contained an early deity-level expert. Battleship C9, even ordinary peak deity-level experts wouldn't be able to afford it. All 18 of them were a little excited and immediately began to carefully study the many formations inside Battleship C9, trying their best to unleash even greater power. Let's go and play with this blood-creeping flower. A plant life form dares to fight against us? These 18 gods were very confident. In the god realm, they were very ordinary, but in the mortal world, they could be said to be the peak of power. The sorcerer god, the great demon god, and Dongbua Shui Ying from the Star Tower were all watching this scene. Inside the Star Tower, Mountain Lord He, although Dongbua Shui Ying was paying attention to everything that was happening outside, he still went to Mountain Lord He's place and walked side by side with him inside the Star Pagoda. There's something that I need to trouble you with. Snow Eagle, feel free to speak. Mountain Lord, he hurriedly said. At this moment, he was also anxious to contribute his strength to the Xia people. It was just that when they saw the massive fortress and the numerous battleships, they felt a sense of pressure. In this war, our greatest reliance is this Star Pagoda. Dongbua Shui Ying says, this is a level 12 Star Pagoda. It is able to control the surrounding space to form a world. In this world, each and every one of our actions can mobilize even more power. On the other hand, the sorcerer god side would be suppressed, and their strength would decrease. Our strength will increase. In addition, the Star Pagoda even formed a very stable world membrane. This membrane wall is very tough. The sorcerer god and the others can't break it. Hearing this, Mountain Lord, he was instantly overjoyed. Snow Eagle, you mean that the sorcerer god and the others are unable to rush out of the Star Pagoda? Dongbua Shui Ying nodded. They're trapped here and can't get out. Doesn't that mean we'll definitely win? Mountain Lord, he was overjoyed. As long as the enemy was trapped for a long time, wouldn't that be the same as winning? Any weapon of war consumes a lot of energy. Dongbua Shueing shook his head. The energy consumption of a level 12 star pagoda is even more terrifying. If there is no one proficient in array formations controlling it, the most extravagant operation of the star pagoda would require 200,000 god crystals a year. 200,000 deity crystals? Mountain Lord, he was shocked. Dongbua Shueing said helplessly, "How can it be so easy to trap the sorcerer god and the others while having the geographical advantage? I've stored 600,000 deity crystals in the star pagoda. If I operate it extravagantly, it can last for 3 years. Snow Eagle, you're looking for me?" Mountain Lord, he somewhat understood. To operate the star pagoda, there are many arrays inside the star pagoda, and its operation is extremely complicated. Dongbua Shueing said, "It's 1,000 times more complicated than the Dingzhou battleship. But if one can comprehend a part of the arrays, they can more effectively guide the energy of the deity crystals, and the consumption can be reduced. A year might only require 150,000 deity crystals, or even less." Mountain Lord, he nodded. He understood this point. Like the Dingzhou battleship, when controlled by the demigods of the Xia people, a single deity crystal could only unleash a single powerful attack. But if it was controlled by a powerful deity, the power of a single deity crystal could be unleashed over 1,000 times. 1,000 times difference. It was clear that more than 99% of the energy would be wasted. The Star Pagoda was obviously more complicated. It also had a higher energy requirement. Even the divine energy of 8 to 10 deities would not be enough. It required a large amount of deity crystals to maintain. Jing Xiao has been studying arrays in Crimson Rock Mountain for 800 years. Dongbua Shueing said, "Her innate talent is extremely high, and she is very suitable to control the Star Pagoda. But controlling the arrays of the Star Pagoda is too taxing on the soul. It's even more taxing than controlling a peak deity, rank blood, refined deity weapon. Jing Xiao is also unable to control it continuously. Thus, I hope that you and Jing Xiao can take turns." "All right." Mountain Lord, he nodded and smiled. "Mage Jing Xiao's innate talent is extremely high. In your generation, Eternal Wind, you, Jing Xiao, and Yuan Qing are all extremely talented. Perhaps the will of the world knows that our Xia people are facing a great calamity, so is helping our Xia people, allowing our Xia people to continuously produce geniuses." Dongbua Shueing smiled. "Perhaps." Mountain Lord, please hurry and study the arrays of the Star Pagoda. This is your house. You can control it from here. Within a sealed hall, after Mountain Lord he entered, he could clearly sense the operation of the entire Star Pagoda. Borrowing the heaven and earth energy, he quickly discovered the countless arrays operating within the Star Pagoda. It was too complicated. Vigorous godly energy was recklessly surging around. Many of the arrays were forcefully activated by godly energy, causing a large amount of energy to be wasted. But there was no other way. Whether it was Jing Xiao or Mountain Lord their realms were too low, so they could only save a little. Even among peak deity rank experts, only a few who were proficient in arrays could perfectly control this Star Pagoda. At that time, they could save 100 times more energy, requiring only 2,000 deity crystals per year. Unfortunately, such an existence did not exist. Who? Dongbua Shueing took a step forward, passing through space and arriving at the hall where his wife was. Jing Xiao sat cross-legged, controlling the Star Pagoda. On Crimson Dust Island, she had already studied the Star Pagoda for more than 500 years. Second senior brother Goodbye, who had personally refined the Star Pagoda, had given pointers many times, allowing Jing Xiao's control ability to continuously improve. Thus, when it came to controlling the Star Pagoda, Jing Xiao was the strongest. Under her full control, she only required 120,000 deity crystals per year. Dongbua Shui did not have high requirements for Mountain Lord He. He wanted to first reach 150,000 deity crystals per year, then lower. The longer the Star Pagoda was maintained, the greater their chances of victory. Amen. Dongbua Shui gazed through the Star Pagoda, looking at the outside world. On the vast desert, the swaying, huge black blood-creeping flower had already clashed with the 18 battleships C9. Countless raindrops condensed in the air, attempting to corrode the blood-creeping flower. A dazzling, illusory sword furiously slashed at the blood-creeping flower. Countless white silk webs entangled the blood-creeping flower. The 18 Deity World battleships were far away in midair. They did not approach, attacking the blood-creeping flower from afar. The blood-creeping flower was incomparably arrogant. Its vines waved about wantonly, and each of its movements could incite the enormous might of the world. With the assistance of the Star Pagoda, its strength had greatly increased. In particular, the special black war weapon on its body made it feel even more delighted. It was clearly a middle-stage deity, but with the assistance of the two, it could display the strength of a late-stage deity. The power of the battleships was suppressed by the Star Pagoda and was even weaker than a casual swing of the blood-creeping flower's vines. Master, their speed is too fast. I can't catch them. The blood-creeping flower was somewhat anxious as it communicated with Dongbua Shuang within the Star Pagoda. Snow Eagle, these Deity World battleships can't do anything to the blood-creeping flower, but the blood-creeping flower can't touch them either. Palace Lord Qin said. Amen. Dongbua Shuang nodded. The blood-creeping flower is indeed weak in terms of speed. Shuang Man, attack the fort. Dongbua Shuang ordered. Yes, master. The blood-creeping flower immediately became excited. Dongbua Shuang looked at the enormous fort from afar, pondering. In order to destroy the stable spatial tunnel, they had to destroy that fort. Let's see how strong this fort is. Dongbua Shuang thought. The situation is terrible. The sorcerer god and the great demon god were watching the battle through the walls of the fort. The sorcerer god said, under the suppression of the Star Pagoda, the battleship C9's power is barely close to a late-stage deity's. On the other hand, the blood-creeping flower has a true late-stage deity's combat power. Moreover, it has a huge body and countless vines. 18 battleships are completely useless against it. This bit of power is not enough. Add more power and force Dongbua Shuang to use his killer move. The great demon god's body was covered in flames. Since he is able to take out the level 12 Star Pagoda, he must have prepared a method to attack our fort. This blood-creeping flower's power is not bad, but its realm is too low. It can't threaten us. All right, the sorcerer god nodded. Both sides were very cautious. Dongbua Shuang, the sorcerer god, and the great demon god were all very cautious, trying to figure out their opponent's methods. This battle was too important to both sides. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.